not know, I'm Michelle Tuzing-Dufour, Chair of the School Committee here in Hudson. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, parents, students, citizens. I also want to thank some other people who are here tonight. We have Tom Moses, our town executive, representation from our Board of Selectmen with John Parent and Fred Lucy. We have representation from the district with our senior staff, curriculum directors, and principals. We also have the presidents of the HEA, co-presidents of the HEA here. And also I'd like to thank the HUD-TV staff for getting this recorded to what will be posted tomorrow for people to be able to see. I'm glad we're here tonight to be able to have this conversation in a different format that is more dialogue-based. As most of you know, the school committee meetings and the public participation format is not set up for that, for back and forth, so I'm glad that we're able to have more of that tonight with everyone here together. There have been some people in the community who have expressed their frustrations with what happened at the most recent school committee meeting, feeling like we did not respond to their concerns that were brought up during public participation. And I'm sorry if that's how people felt. In retrospect, I look back and in my efforts to move the meeting along, I can easily see where it might have looked that people weren't being acknowledged. So that's on me, and that was never my intent. So for those who felt that way, I apologize. Since then, I've had many one-on-one conversations with constituents, I've emailed people and spoke with other people in the town in an effort to make sure, and work with Dr. Rodriguez, to make sure that tonight that this forum meets those shortcomings that people felt were happening before. So in that spirit tonight, we've worked to prepare a comprehensive PowerPoint presentation for you that we hope will clarify some points that might have been vaguer earlier on, and also will clarify and dispel some misinformation that's been out there either on social media or just around the town in conversations. Once we're all on the same page with similar information, I believe our discussions are going to be richer and more productive. Some of the comments I have heard in our meetings in the past couple is directed to Dr. Rodriguez being to blame for the unpopular choices or changes that are coming. I know it's a lot of times kind of easy to scapegoat the new guy or someone we don't know, but any of these choices and changes that have come forth through this budget did not happen only by him. He did not create this in a vacuum. He worked with the board. When we met last summer, we talked about the issues we saw in the district and what we wanted him to look for and find out. He did his research, he did his analysis, he came back to us, gave us his rationale, and from that we made choices as a board and voted the current budget. We also did that with the interest of all students in mind. So tonight we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about, oops, I think I went ahead. There we go. We're going to talk, there we go. We're good. Technology, folks, is awesome. We're going to talk about the entry plan findings, central office staffing, FY19 budget. Is it not where it's supposed to be? All right, there we go, sorry. We're going to talk about the entry plan findings, central office staffing, the FY19 budget, staff reductions, enrollment, class sizes, all the things that people have been asking questions about and would like more clarification. Once we've covered all of that through the presentation, we are going to open it up for questions. This is being recorded, so if you do have a question, please come down and use the microphones here. Similar to town meeting, we're going to ask people to limit themselves to 2 questions per topic, just to make sure everybody here has a chance to speak or be heard. What I hope mostly from tonight is that if you came in not knowing something, that you have a deeper understanding of it, and that even if you don't like everything that's going on, that you understand where it's coming from and what our reasoning was behind it. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Rodriguez. Thank you.
So, as Mrs. Dufour said earlier, we took notes of everything that has been part of the conversations, the requests, the many emails that I received and phone calls that we had, conversations we had with individually with people about the things that are more pressing to understand better for us to have a conversation based on the same amount of data or perception or information. So tonight I'm going to guide you through some slides So you know, there are 25 slides. Some slides will be fairly quickly because we're just to show something. Others we're gonna pause a little bit because there's more information to be had. And by any time after I finish the PowerPoint presentation, we can return to any slides that we want to and refer to as you have questions or concerns or want to speak about. So even though I am new to the district, and it's part of my responsibility to create an entry plan. And the entry plan is about, and this is not just for Hudson, that every superintendent goes through this process, and looking at having an entry plan to learn about the priorities, expectations, concerns, and the vision for the district. And that doesn't come in a vacuum. Even before July 1st, when I came here to visit the district, I was already meeting with people of the senior staff, members of the senior staff, with principals, and everyone who was not non-teaching staff pretty much I met with. And then after that, we had conversations, again, individual meetings with school committee members, and then when school started, I started my listening sessions. And the listening sessions were primarily with parents, with staff, and students. And the core content of those questions were exactly about that. What do you think are priorities? What are the expectations? What are the things that we fall short? What are your concerns? So those are always the recurring kind of conversations we had with everybody. So through that process, and at the same time, I was looking at documents. Every document that pertained to Hudson, every document that had been published, whether before me or data from the state, analyzing the student data, student achievement, looking at every single piece of information, contracts that we have with different unions, the policy manual, looking at every part of Hudson to understand, one, what these documents are telling me, and then what are the perceptions and things that I'm hearing from everybody that we need to move the district forward in whatever direction. So as a result of that, I compiled a number of facets, right? My report is on the website, and I encourage you to, it's a large report, so I encourage you to read that, because tonight I'm not going to give you everything that's there, but that report was then organized in 5 different sections. It talked about the organizational effectiveness of the district. It talks about the district school climate and culture. It talks about teaching, learning, and student supports. It talks about communication and budget development. Those are the things that, as I compile all the information that I learned from the district, are divided within these 5 specific areas. Why is that important? Because these 5 areas are the 5 areas that typically a district gets evaluated on by the state. So in other words, we need to understand where we are, where do we fall under this as practices, as behaviors, as performance, everything you can possibly imagine. If we were to be under the microscope, those are the areas that the state would be looking at us to see how well do we do our job as a public school district. So that's how is it organized. So I encourage you to look at that report. But what I'm highlighting today is just a few things that kind of rose to the top in terms of looking at what are the areas for immediate attention, what are the areas that really we have to focus, because some things we cannot delay. Some things is not something that we can plan for long term, right? So we look into services and programs for students with disabilities. We look at English learners. We look at the supports to address behavioral health, which is the social emotional learning that we hear over and over again from teachers. Develop structures to monitor and support the structural practices at each building, meaning how each building operates to support all students. Professional development was something that was loud and clear from teachers that we needed to do something different about that. And how do we develop more rigorous academic pursuits for all students? And all means all. And again, develop the defined educational pathways. One of the things we don't do well, it's not because anyone's fault, it's just we haven't got there yet. We don't advertise well the great things that happen inside the Hudson Public Schools. We don't show, if I have an aptitude for mathematics or engineering, we don't tell parents and students what will be the opportunities for you to go from middle school to high school. What courses could you take? What are the things that could really be good for you because that's what you like? We don't do that well, and we're going to do that much better. So students and parents can prepare better their trajectory within the Hudson Public Schools. Now, one thing that came very clear among all the conversations we've had is the concept that I came here in July and there was a huge, increase in central office personnel, okay? And where's the money coming from? So the money is right in front of you today, it's detailed there. So part of the discussions we had is that each one of the jobs that were, we reallocated resources to create new positions. The position was part of that organizational effectiveness that I talked about, so we have the right people in the right positions to give Hudson the best chance to succeed, right? So as you look at that, I'm not gonna read, we can talk about this later on. The only position that was created new, that did not exist in the budget, or we could not retool the money or reallocate resources, was that, I don't know if you see it in red, it says 0, then coordinator of special education evaluation service for elementary level. Because I created 2 of those positions, one from secondary and one for the elementary. The elementary is the only one we did not have resources in the budget for that. So that was taken from someplace else to support that position. Every other position, you know exactly where it came from. Now, if that $622,000 on the right side, if you reduce that by $90,000, which is the money that we had to find, the money is basically almost the same. So again, it wasn't like we are taking money from this location, that location. It was all parity about the positions that we had that were vacant that was transformed into something else. So that's and we can talk more about that. So what have we accomplished this year so far? So we created a professional development advisory council, which is something that every district that provides professional development needs to have a council, because we are PDP providers. So by state level, by standards, and because of the new educator evaluation, we need to have a professional development council and a plan to actually controls and dictates how professional development is carried out within any district. So Hudson, we created one for the first time, presented to the school committee, has been approved. It's also online if you'd like to take a look. So also, we have been providing professional development much more targeted than it was before. That was one of the things that I heard loud and clear from teachers. We're also creating right now the multi-tier system of supports framework. What does that mean, this whole thing, this MTSS? It means that we're creating a framework to set standards for ourselves. And the standards about how do we support students academically, how do we support students behaviorally, how do we support students with attendance, because attendance is an issue in Hudson, and how do we support students with family engagement. Those are the 4 areas. There's a team of about 30 to 40 people now working on this framework, and it will be done by June. So this framework was going to tell us is this: at a minimum, these are the things that should be in presence in every one of our schools. And if it is not, how do we provide supports for that? Meaning that if a student is struggling academically, what are we doing about it? What's the frame? What are the must-haves that we have to have? If the student is struggling behaviorally, there's social emotional issues present, how do we as an adult take care of that child? Because it's not just about giving out English, math, science, and social studies. It's about how do we support the student to be successful in our schools. And for that needs resources, needs money, and that's why it's important to every time we look at the budget, we look at resource allocation to look at the priorities that we need to have. If we have a priority, our priority is social emotional, then we need to put our money where our mouth is, right? So we also created at the elementary level something that we have to create mid-year, a stabilization program for students who are really dysregulated and needed support. So that has been created. And for next year, principals are being trained right now on developing a structural leadership team, meaning that every school is going to have a team composed with teachers of representation from every grade level, every type of specialty that they have, to be able to define and have ownership and have some autonomy on how to take care of instructional practice inside a school. Every school is different. Even though it's Hudson Public Schools, every school is a different culture, every school has a different need. So therefore, that building needs to have that autonomy to say, these are the things that we need the most to support our students best. All right, so that's going to be the ILT. What are we envisioning to accomplish next year? Things that's already kind of in the pipeline. So we are adding librarian technology teachers to Mulready and Forest, so they're going to have full-time of these positions they're building. Right now it's part-time. We are adding to Quinn Middle School a numeracy teacher and a literacy teacher. These are for support services for students. We are also adding STEM and humanities teaching positions for Quinn as well. And we'll discuss later on. I have a schema of what the schedule looks like. We are enhancing occupational therapy, speech and physical therapy. These are things that are mandated by, IEPs that we need to provide. We secured a grant from Project Lead the Way. We're going to be offering engineering classes in grades K to 4. We are going to have computer science courses at the middle school, which we never had. We are going to start biomedical courses at the high school. There will be some biomedical components at the middle school as well. I'm going to show you later on what we're going to do. And there are more courses being advised for, for the high school, again, according to the interests and needs. So again, we need to grow as a district. We need to provide more than what we have right now. And to provide more, we need more resources. And the resources we have are very generous, and we're going to talk about that later on as well. But the resource needs to be aligned. Aligned to what? To the interest of the students, to support every child. When we say all, we mean all. So, student enrollment. That has been a big point of conversation too, because some people believe, some people don't believe that. This is a part of conversation that I had, whether there is, a reduction in student enrollment in Hudson, okay? These numbers are numbers from DASI, they are October 1st report. So for those of you who do not know, October 1st is a pivotal day for us. All students enrolled in the Hudson Public Schools, or any school in the Commonwealth, by that means, on October 1st becomes the funding source for the following year. So the following year we received the amount of dollars associated with the number of students we had the prior year. So all those numbers are October 1st numbers. But we also, besides looking at that trend, we look at the trend data that is through NASDAQ. NASDAQ is an organization that provides a comprehensive report for school systems that shows trends in student by birth, by school-age children that are not in school yet, and those who are in school. So they have projections about even perhaps how many births, perhaps will happen within a given year. So the projection goes to, I think, is to 2022 or 23rd right now, the projection that they have. So we rely on those reports as well to guide our thinking on student enrollment. The trends. This is our projection. This is something that if you go to the budget book, you're going to see this chart, right? It's there. It shows that the FY 15, 16, 17, and the current 18, this is what sometime in January we had this and the projection we had. That's the red bars. Those were projections that we had at that point in time. Now remember this, when we're creating a budget, we create a budget in the fall to be approved by the school committee in January, which I thank the selectmen for allowing us a little wiggle room this time around. And then the budget was approved back in January, then to go to the selectmen and run its course. Half the year has not elapsed yet, and we are projecting what we need for the following year. So it's very challenging to create a budget that is so early in the year and try to anticipate every expenditure and everything that we have to provide for the following year. So that sometimes is a challenge, but we rely on those information. Now, this is our current reality. I want to point you to the current 426-18. So in our schools today, those are exactly the number of students we have per grade level today. Okay, I don't think it changed much from April 26th. Okay, the projected FY19. What I did was, if you look at 213 kindergartners, if you go to the right on the first grade, I'm assuming that every kindergartner are returning here for first grade. 199 students in first grade right now are going to become second graders next year. So I added all that. Okay, so I'm assuming everyone is returning. Then DASI, or the Department of Education, sent me a report a couple of weeks ago notifying me that 33 students have been accepted to AMSA. And those are the students who are going to be leaving 5th grade and are returning to Hudson Public School in the 6th grade. So that's already average on the 6th grade being 197 students projection for next year. I spoke with the superintendent at Assabet Valley Technical High School, and he gave that number that 57 students have been accepted to Assabet Valley for the fall. So those are 9th graders who are not returning to the 8th graders who are not returning to Hudson High School. So those numbers are there. So that is today our best estimate, because again, those are real numbers, and those exits are what we expect right now. Maybe some of those students change their mind and won't go, right? But right now, that's the projection we have. Now, another thing that was very common in conversation that I had with people or emails that I responded was about, we need to go to the town, get more money. We need more money, we need more money. Yes, we need more money, but I'm not there yet to go to the town and ask for more money today. And let me explain to you why. It's important to know how the budget is calculated and how we receive money from the state. I already told you, October 1st is that pivotal date, right? So on October 1st is when we receive, we'll know how many students we're gonna be, reimbursed by the per pupil expenditures, right? So in the formula, which is complicated and it's outdated, but nevertheless, so chapter 78 is how much money we receive according to the number of students we have the prior October 1st. There's a formula, there's a set amount. Then the local contribution is about what the town's, taxes and other things, and they kind of get, kind of calculated in another way. And those two together is called the net school spending. The net school spending is the amount of money that we are owed. No more, no less. By law, that's the money we need. So when we look at the preliminary Chapter 7 net school spending, is $28,992 million, right? That's how much money we are owed. The town appropriation for this coming year, for FY19, is $38,091,000. That means the town invests in us above net school spending, above the obligations, $9 million, which is about 33%, right? So that money is what we operate under. All right, so it's important to see this because I think sometimes we say the town's not giving us any money. They are. But right now, as the budget progresses and I evolve with the process, that the zero-based budget that we're talking about, I need time to make sure that every money we have in our budget today is being expended wisely, funneled into the priorities that we need to have. And what's our priorities? Is to best educate all students. No deviation from that. And I will not deviate from that. Whatever the solution is, our obligation is for the students. And if they're not progressing academically, they're being supported, shame on us. So we need to maintain that standard that no matter what, the priorities is about the students. And that I won't deviate from that. So this is our budget for next year, right? So, I just noted this kind of you have the copies, right? So this is our budget for next year. So in essence, the town appropriation is the $38 million. Circuit breaker is a reimbursement we get for students with disabilities who we pay, a higher price. Perhaps if they go out of town, they go into private school, right? We get some reimbursement. And that money is also based on last year, so we know exactly how much money we get. So that's $1 million. We know that we're receiving that as a revenue. And the school choice account right now has $2 million, $2.6 million. And at one point we talk about the school choice account, right? That becomes our revenue. So right now, as of 4/23, when we present to the school committee the third quarter balance, right, of the budget for FY18. So we still have to reduce our budget from now through June by $549,000. Okay, which we have been doing that. We already reduced the budget by $2 million since July 1st. Okay, so our expenditure projection is $42.3 million. Right now, we only have 41.7. That's why we have to find that 500,000 to make sure that July 1st we'll have $42.3 million. That's our goal right now. Okay. I'll talk about Tommy.
At some of our meetings, a lot of people have been saying we need to go to town meeting and advocate for the schools, which of course we want advocacy for the schools, but the town meeting is not necessarily the best place to start with that. Town meeting is May 7th, 7:30, over at the auditorium. What we need is for the motion for this budget to pass. If there are amendments or things that come with it that make this not pass, that means that we do not get any of the funds from the state to run our schools next year. So we need to make sure we have the people there to support this budget and get it passed. If you do want to talk about future advocacy, you can speak to your Board of Selectmen going forward, after this is done, over the summer, over the fall, before we start the FY20 budget cycle. All of our budget meetings are posted on the town meeting site and open to the public. Anybody can come, and we typically start them in November. School committee will be making a concerted effort to publicize these in the coming year. We've heard your requests to say, well, we didn't know they were happening, even though we're on the town website. Can you push that information out? We will. We'll try to get it out to our home schools. We'll get the principals to, in their either round robins or weekly announcements, to let people know these are happening. And that's on us to try to get that out to you. And then if you want to come, we welcome you to come and sit in our meetings.
So now, let's talk about reduction in personnel process. Not to be confused with budget cuts. The budget has not been cut this year. If anything, went up $500,000, which is 1.3% from last year. Right? So the budget is not being cut. We are reducing personnel because the number of students we have in front of us does not require the amount of personnel we have today. That's our reality. Okay? And I said this public, and I'll say it again, is the most unpleasant thing to sit down in front of individuals and say, you're being let go. All right? Jason Webster and I sat down there and had that 12 times in front of us. You know, it's not a pleasant thing to do. But again, if anyone has to do it, it has to be me. I am responsible for, along with the school committee, to create a budget that's sound and a budget that provides the best education for our students. So I had to do it. So, but once we do reduction in personnel, it's not something that we just do it. It's something that is very regimented because the school committee has a contract agreement with the Hudson Education Association, which guides all the contractual language for teacher employment. That means that there's a clause in there, if there's a reduction in personnel, there's a very specific protocol in which we utilize. So we understand who goes when and how does that play out. So the first thing that is important to know, that there's a seniority list. The more time a teacher is part of the Hudson Public Schools, the greater they go into this list of seniority because they are, had more time in the schools. Now, there's also two other things that are very important to know. After 3 years of employment, a teacher receives a professional status, meaning that when you are non-professional status, you are likely to be the first one to go if any reduction in personnel exists in a particular area. And it's all about licensure, right? It's not like just the first person who arrived who goes. If we're reducing an English teacher, then who is the English teacher licensed in that particular area? Not any English teacher. It might be a middle school, high school, very specific to what they teach. And they look at the seniority list and they look at the non-PTS. So that person is the first one to go. So along the way, for us to get to the process of, on April 6th, when we're delivering the notice to teachers they're not returning next year, there was a lot of planning involved. Not only from the standpoint of HR, but working with the heads of the HEA to make sure that we did the process fairly, respectfully, but most importantly, it was done in a way that provided, it was backed by the language in the contract. So now, in other words, we didn't there's no favoring anyone, it's really looking at the contract and how the contract responds to the needs of the teachers when there's a reduction in personnel. So that was something that was deliberated, we had multiple meetings, and we could come to a conclusion. Even we decided when is at the time that we're going to do this for the teachers, right? This was done together in a very approachable way, so we could actually, again, in a tough situation, at least be respectful of the process and the teachers that we were laying off. So, what are the expected reduction in personnel? So, each school, with the exception of Forest did not have any situation this year, but all the schools had different, scenarios of reductions. Now, even though sometimes there's a reduction in a particular position, we have to consider, are there any retirements? So there will be a vacancy anyway, so there's no one being laid off, right? So when we look at Farley, for example, the four reduction there in terms of, again, getting classrooms to be condensed into about 20 students per class. There are retirements, there are other factors that are right now, people are moving to different positions, that we anticipate that in the end, no one's gonna be let go. But there will be a reduction in personnel at Farley, but there's no person associated with the position because everything is moving around, people going to different reassignments. Forest, there's nothing going on there. Mulready had 2 teachers, 1 teacher retired, so another one moved back, so there's only 1 reduction there. Middle school, it was an entire team for each grade, so that composes of 12 teachers, 12 positions. Now, the net, even though we are bringing back 4 teachers, and I look at, before I said, there's a literacy, a numeracy, there's a STEM, and a humanities teacher. Those 4 positions are going to return to Quinn Middle School in different capacity. It does not necessarily mean that the people who were let go can actually apply. It's about licensure, but if they can, the more the merrier. There's no objection there. But right now, that's the net reduction at Quinn, not looking at person, but positions is 8. And at the high school, just 7. There was a retirement, there was a vacancy, so in the end, it's really only 5, okay? And I say only, it's not like I'm minimizing anything, but at least is the impact that that's having into the reduction. Now, this is a quick, numbers just to show in terms of, towns that are surrounding us a little bit, what types of per pupil expenditure they have, the pupil funding, the average class sizes, which is quite interesting, including, looking at AMSA, a 19.4, average class there, because sometimes people think is this very cozy, small, classroom sizes. And average teacher salary. This is all from DESE, all right? I just went to the website, pick up all this information. This is as of a 2016 report, okay? Just again, to put in context, how does Hudson fare, in comparison to other communities surrounding us? So, elementary levels. This is today's, again, if you look at this chart, that is, for example, Farley has 4 kindergarten classes. Right now, they have 20, 22, 22, and 23. In first grade, they have a 17, a 20, and 18, and 15 class. So that's the actual enrollment today of all the elementary schools, right? I can put things in context what that looks like right now, right? This is the Quinn Middle School, right? When you look at the class size, the far left is the number of students in a class. The next is the number of classes with that number of students in it. So if you were to look at the math is probably the one that you can most visible. The math class, there are, when you do the total, the third column, 7 classes have a range of 20, 25, 24 students right now. 13 classes has a range of 17 to 19 students per class, and 15 classes has a range from 14 to 16 students per class. That is our situation today, right? So that is again, to bring in context, what exactly look like in today's standards, right? Now, let's talk about what this scenario about changing, for middle school, because there's a lot of conflicting information, a lot of misinformation about how Quinn Middle School will operate next year, okay? Let's look at the left side, the student schedule first, right? Then we look at the teachers, and then the next page has a little more information. Next year, and this is just a sample, okay? Next year, if a student is a student who does not require any services for special education and does not require any services for English learners, like the ESL classes, right? Those are things that they must have in addition to the core content classes. If they don't have any of that, okay? If you are a 7th grader, you're going to have English, social studies, math, science, and world languages every day. Then they have, go here a little bit. Then they have 6th and 7th period. They have 8 blocks of time, approximately a quarter each, that they will be able to have related arts courses. And that's, I'm going to show you what that is next, right? So, but your typical art, phys ed, technology, engineering, all that. So they have 8 different types of things that they can do. If you are a 6th grader, and again, you don't need any other services, you have world language for 3/4 of the year, and not just 3/4. It's going to be throughout the year, but often on the schedules, right? Then you have the 8 plus 1, 9 opportunities for related art courses. And if you are a 5th grader, you're gonna have a half a year of foreign language, and then you have even more, now you have 10 opportunities for related arts. Now, let's look at the right side now. Teacher schedule. In today's schedule, teachers teaches 4 classes, a flex block, then they have a prep period, then they have a common planning time or team time, whatever they call, right? Next year, they will have 5 classes, because flex is no longer there. They will teach 5 classes of whatever subject they already teach, and they have a prep period and the common planning time. So that doesn't change, right? Instead of teaching the flex block, they're going to be teaching one more block of what they already teach. If it's math, science, English, social studies, whatever the certification that they have. Now, this is what the related arts going to look like for students next year. So in those blocks, right, 8, 9, or 10 different, quarters that they can play with. They can have art, they can have music, which is probably chorus, they have band, they have drama, they have phys ed, they have all the things that they have this year, they're going to have next year again. What is new that we're creating that is more rigorous and more in alignment with the core content, meaning that the STEM and humanity courses that we're creating here will be a reinforcement of the time students spend in the classroom with math, science, English, and social studies. So be complementary to that, right? So what is it going to be? In 5th grade, they will have an option to have computer science. They will have an option to have a biomedical course called electronic textiles. They have an engineering course that's called building green. And they have current issues in media. The curriculum director worked very hard on creating what's the best way that we could maximize one schedule to provide the best information, best exposure to students. So that's the work of our curriculum directors. Then 6th grade, the same thing. Project Lead the Way going to be in place. It's going to be the app creator, right? They're going to have medical innovations. They're going to have another Project Lead the Way, design modeling, and then using social media as another humanities class. If you are a 7th grader, you have fewer choice. Remember, you got to have a full-time language, so you only have 2 periods. But again, you can be exposed to Innovators and Makers, another Project Lead the Way engineering course. We have Green Architecture, another Project Lead the Way course. Robotics and Automation, and I'm a collaborator, which is sequential for the current issues in media, and using social media is kind of a sequence of that. So again, courses that are relevant, courses that are engaging, and courses that are rigorous. Because we need to provide more. They need to be exposed to more. And this is our attempt right now for next year to create that great exposure. For those students who are typically have all the core content areas but need to be pulled out, for a reading because they have a disability, or they're English learners and they need to have an ESL course, that will eat up on those related arts. And right now, it's very limited what they can be exposed. Next year, we're going to emphasize that they can not only have the phys ed, because you need to have it, right? But you can have some of these courses that are fun, are creative, and in today's date, they're not exposed to. But we're creating more with the resources that we have. That's where we are for next year. Another thing that's very important for you to know, we've been engaged. When I arrived in Hudson, it was the last year of the district improvement plan. The document that is created typically for 3 years, and it was ending. So whatever we're doing this year, the leadership team worked last July in making what this year is going to look like. But right now, the leadership team is engaged in developing the next iteration of the district improvement plan, our next 3 years. And that plan will have our priorities. We have our commitment on how do we want to bring the Hudson to the next level. And that priority is going to guide the budget as well. As I said before, if we have a priority, the budget has to follow. We can't say this is a priority, but we have no money, or we're not investing in that. So if we need to let go of something to create something that's a priority for us, that's what we have to do. So that's how we're going to be. We're creating the mission, vision, and theory of action. Our objectives are going to be our priority areas, and the new district improvement plan will be presented to the school committee next month for approval by June 12th. And as I said before, one of the things we don't do well is to tell parents and students what are the potential educational pathways you can have. What aptitudes do you have? What likes do you have? Why is it important for you to stay in Hudson? Why should you stay in Hudson? Because we have this pathway that I can follow and I'll be excited about being there, right? So all those humanities, visual arts, performing arts, we have, when you get to the high school, we have an exceptional selection of courses for students, but we don't advertise that well. I don't care if your child's in 4th grade. We need to start making sure that when we get to high school, students are excited. Excited not only to be in the middle school with, with things that are, exciting, but those will be already the stepping stones for when they get to the high school and be exposed to even more electives, right? So that's where we are, and we don't do that well. And again, I'm not pointing fingers, it's not anyone's fault, we just need to move in that direction. And STEM, the engineering, computer science, and biomedical, we are creating a robust, kind of a cluster in the high school, but we need to make sure that the middle school has equally the same amount of coursework that gets students started, so when they get to the high school, they have already known what they like. Sometimes it takes one course that you like something so badly that that's changed your life. But unless we expose students to a variety of things, we'll never know what kicks. We'll never know what really going to be that hook that's going to maybe keep them in Hudson. Another thing that I want to clarify here, on maybe 2 school committee ago, I made a comment about parents will always have the choice to leave Hudson, and I continue to say that statement. What I think got misrepresented is that I said in addition to that, I said my obligation is to the students who stay, but for those to stay, we need to do better. And that's what we're trying to do. We need to create more with the money that we have. Then going back to my conversation about going to the town and ask for more money. I'm not convinced yet that we are applying all our resources the right way so we can expose students to more. Once I get to that point, which is a budget process, budget is a very complex issue. It's not something that you mathematically you add 2 and 2 together and it's a budget. It's really about the mandates, the services. So when you think a budget, it's about number of students means how many personnel, then the programs and services. And when we prioritize what we want, that has to follow. And that's what we're creating our district improvement plan for the next 3 years, and that's what we want to do. But again, along the way, we don't have to make difficult decisions. And the difficult decisions is to look ourselves in the mirror and say, our enrollment has been in decline. What do we do about that? Is that pleasant what I had to do with the principals? No, it's not. Is that something we like to do? No, it's not. But is it necessary? Yes, it is. Otherwise, I cannot face any one of you or anyone in the town and say, I am the keeper of the budget, and I'm consciously knowing that the budget has been created in a way that I'm spending every tax dollars in a way that it should be spent. So we're gonna get there. I need some more time. Next month, also, I'll be introducing to the school committee a financial plan to stabilize the budget. That plan is going to be about 3 years' time, where we're going to think very hard on how we're going to decrease the deficit that we have right now, which is $2.5 billion, which is that school choice account that I was referring to earlier. We will get there. It'll take some time. But along the way, we have to make very difficult decisions. But that's how we get to a point where we have a sound budget that no matter what we decide to do, the budget's there to support. And that's the time that we'll be ready to go to the town and say, John, we need more money. But I'm not going to say, John, we need more for tomorrow. I want to give him the projection, give him the heads up to prepare for that, because no one likes surprises. But our job in Hudson Public Schools is also to be mindful of how the town treats us. So we want to make sure that whatever we do is to provide the best information so they can plan ahead. So in our favor comes the money that we need to be able to produce more, because the Hudson Public Schools, or any public schools, is a huge economic engine from any community, right? So if that's the case, we need to make sure that we have the best we can. And right now, that's what we're working on. But budget process takes a long time. I introduced a different budget process this year. It was a big learning curve for everybody, everyone in my team. We introduced characteristics of that. It wasn't a full-blown zero-based budget approach, because again, it takes time for it to do that. And time we didn't have, because the budget had to be done by December to vote in January. But the budget process has not stopped. Every day we continue to look at every contract. We're looking at even copiers. You know, what contracts do we have? Can we economize? Can we do something different? We are not leaving any stone unturned, because that's how we find efficiency in the budget to support other things that we didn't have today that we can create for tomorrow. But along the way, we cannot ignore the reduction in personnel, because the numbers don't lie to us. And if we are getting money from the state and from the town based on an enrollment, that has to mirror the priorities that we have. And the number of teachers is associated with the number of students that we have. If we get to a point where we stabilize the budget, we can, from there, we can create way more than we have today. But it will take time. So, that's our information right there. Whatever you need, Michelle and I are always available. If you have a question, you can call me. If you want to send me an email, we can do so. But I think what Michelle, I'm going to reiterate something that she said earlier. We want you to leave here today. Maybe you don't agree with the whole thing, but at least leave here with clarity. So you can go out and you can speak about what we spoke today. Not different perceptions or not different things that you want to assume, right? Social media is like a dime a dozen, right? So there's all kinds of opinions going on. But we cannot live on these opinions. We have to look at what we feel that's the best interest, again, to make sure that all our students are being serviced. Some cost more money than others, but that's our obligation to do so. That's our community. And we cannot deviate from that thought every single day. And if we mean that, we're going to behave that way. It's not just about having pretty things happen, written in papers or beautiful statements and walking away and not walking the walk. That's the part that's the most difficult part. And that's the challenge I have for all my team. As we create our core values, I want to see how the core values are actually lived. Not spoken, not what's written in a piece of paper, but how each member of my team is going to walk the walk moving forward. Because otherwise, we have no backbone. So, we stop right here. I can go back to any slide you wish to go. And the two microphones are here. Michelle, if you want to, whatever, again, it's 2 minutes, or 2 questions per person?
2 questions per person per topic.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure. Could you please come to the microphone, because we're recording, so I'll make sure that we hear your voice, please. Thanks.
Can we go back to the slide that talked about the class sizes?
The middle school, the
Yep.
elementary school? No.
So this is a depiction of current class size. What I want to understand is, given the reductions and how the majority of those reductions are going to be felt in Quinn,
Yeah.
what does that do to the class size in these ranges? Why don't we have like an apples to apples comparison of what it's going to do in FY19? Or can we get that?
Well, it would have, this is what I can tell you, right? So let me go back to that other chart. Oh, sorry, wrong direction. All right. Very slow. There you go. So consider this, right? If we are anticipating that in 5th grade, there will be 214 students. There will be 2 teams of 107 students. If it's 107 students, every teacher has 5 periods to teach. So that teacher will have 21 students per class on average, right? So if you go to the 6th grade, we're projecting 197 students. There'll be 2 teams. Let's call it, one team 97, one team 100. One team will have the teachers, the English, Math, Science, Social Studies will have 20 students per class because 100 students, and all the teachers will have a little less because it's 97, it doesn't account to 100. That's going to be the projection then. 7th grade, there are 210. Two teams of 105. 105, every class is going to have 21 students. That's going to be the projection for next year. One thing that so thank you for doing this, because that was the one thing I failed to mention it. So related arts class today at the middle school is on average 20 to 27 students per class. that number will be reduced because we're adding those engineering and biotechnical classes. See the ranges from 20 to 27? Those numbers won't be that high anymore because we are adding all those courses that will shrink down these because there'll be 10 different types of related arts. And that's going to shrink. It's unlikely that we have a class of 27 in the future in related arts.
That was my next question. So again, trying to get an apples to apples comparison, it's a little bit difficult. I mean, of course we can do the math, but to understand exactly what the impact is and saying that, again, I have a daughter going into 5th grade and I want to see, typically in her classes, is it going to go up by 3, by 4? What are the implications of that, right? So that's going to be helpful for us to sort of be invested in the decision like you just talked about. We're going to have to make these choices and we're going to have to make them together, right? We need to sort of go in with an eyes wide open approach. So part of that to me is I understand the necessity and the interest in having these specific STEM courses and having more options, and that's great. But then that other slide that you had, the current versus existing versus next year when you had all of those classes listed, that didn't seem apples to apples to me either, right? Because it's not like those other, like the art, physical education, all of those other pieces are going away.
No.
It's that there's going to be other options to add to that choice, right? For
Correct.
students?
Yeah, so think of this, right? So there's a 7-period day. 5 periods of the day, your daughter in 5th grade will have 4 subjects, English, math, science, and social studies, half of the year world language, right? And then the period 6 and 7 and portion of the half of the year for world language, she'll have other options. And the options will be art, music, phys ed, health, maybe the engineering,
Right.
the computer science, the electronic textile. So she'll have all those options, right? She can have band, she can have chorus. So whatever, there's a mixture. There's over 10 different types of related arts that can, not every student will have everything, but there'll be that variety that she'll be exposed to. Now, her core content classes, if the number stays steady, right? So it'll be 107 students per team. So she's going to have about 21, some classes 22 kids per class.
I get that.
Right.
I think it's just, and as a statement, I'll just end with, again, the more we can see that sort of apples to apples comparison, the more that we can sort of go in as concerned parents with eyes wide open and understand here are specifically the implications for these changes. Here's exactly what these reductions are going to mean. But yet, we are changing our priorities in certain areas, and this is why it's going to be, essentially in the long run more advantageous for the students. It's going to be helpful for us to have that same information so that we can sort of link arms and do this together, right? Otherwise, it feels like a shell game.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
So again, because we had the urgency per se to have this meeting, because since the last school committee meeting, it took my timeline away a little bit, right?
Sure.
Because Jason and I had discussed that we were going to have a meeting with the teachers to discuss a bunch of stuff, right? And mid-May have an informational parent meeting for parents to go way deeper than this. This was just put together just for the sake of bringing some idea. But once we have the information meeting for parents, you're going to have more detailed information.
That's great.
Right? For example, the art class, right? It could be pottery. It could be, drawing. It could be, so we have performing arts, we have visual arts, so even that's not factored there, right? Like chorus is not even factored there, but it's in the music. So there are varieties but we'll be able to inform parents of those selections when we actually have the informational meeting for parents sometime this month.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
I encourage you to come.
So this is a question that I had asked at the last school committee meeting, and you're saying now that these core teachers are going to be responsible for 107 students. How is that manageable? How is an English teacher expected to provide feedback, to correct papers for 107 students? How is my daughter going to get individualized attention from her teachers next year?
So the schedule that happens right now, right? The teacher has a flex block that also has some, sometimes depending on the teacher might have a small caseload or a larger caseload, depending on who the teacher is, what the flex block entails. So the teacher is not having fewer kids right now, they just don't teach the same course that they're teaching, so, but the obligations are exactly the same. So they are responsible for all the students who come in front of them. plus
Excuse me, how many students are on each team right now?
It's not additional kids.
So, rephrase your question, please.
How many students are currently on each team at Quinn Middle School,
So it depends on the team, right? So you look, if you.
on average?
Yeah, you gotta go back to the numbers. Because that's 3 teams right now.
70-something?
That fifth block is not extra kids. It's the same kids.
Yes.
So state data. Not an extra class.
How is this information that you don't know?
I'm not saying I don't know, I'm pulling because you want the specific numbers.
No, I said on average, how many students are these teachers responsible for right now? I'm gonna guess 70-something? 70 to 80.
78, yes.
So that number is now going to increase. I said at the last meeting about 30 to 40%. It's like 50% that these teachers are now responsible for.
Right.
No, it's not that much.
So when you gotta think of this, right? The teachers are teaching one additional block of the whatever.
But the
sub-
number of students that are in that, on that
but
team
it's
is
not enough.
increasing.
It's not an unreasonable number. 20 students per class.
107 students is not unreasonable?
I teach English at Shrewsbury High School. I've got 120 students. It's the way it's always been. This is actually lower.
That's manageable for you?
It's
You
it's
know
my
your
job.
students both as learners and as students?
I've been teaching there since my 25th year, and I've gotten at the high school. Yeah,
And
and
Shrewsbury
I've
has a
gotten a
larger
lot of
population than
feedback
Hudson.
from parents because I make the time to contact parents. I make an effort and I keep a log of contacting parents when their students are doing really well and as well as when they're struggling. It's very reasonable and very manageable. And so actually hearing that it might go to 107 here, to me that's nothing because I've always had much larger.
Are you a parent of students here in Hudson?
Yes, I am.
This doesn't
And one of the
concern you?
reasons we moved from Bolton to Hudson was because of the school system here. My son has been thriving. He absolutely loves it here. The choices, he's been excited this year, and he's very excited about the
Okay,
electives
do you want to
for
come and
next
take
year.
the microphone now?
No, I'm just giving you more information. So you have a perspective.
Well, this is Hudson. Since I'm standing, I'll continue if that's okay.
Sure.
I would be much more comfortable and interested in these changes if I knew that they were backed and supported by the leadership staff in our schools, who I trust and who know their buildings. Were the principals and curriculum directors part of the decision-making process?
Yes, they were part of the budget process.
To what extent?
Every meeting we had, they were present.
Hi.
So just 2 comments and a question. One comment is, I do understand that where we are in the budget process, it's difficult, and the concerns about town meeting. But I would say that as much as we need to, and I've encouraged everybody I know to attend town meeting and participate, I think we should always be doing that all the time. But in particular, it's not impossible that an amendment could be made to the budget and passed, and then the budget still passed. So I'm just making that statement. That's not a question, but just a statement of, in terms of the process.
May I make a statement over that? Oh, Mr.
Point of order. At a town meeting, you cannot increase a warrant article spending amount. You can only decrease it.
But it's the overall budget. Money can be, you can make an amendment to shift money from one area to another within the budget.
There's only 2 Hudson School Department line items. One is for school busing, and one is for everything else.
What you're proposing is taking money away from another department and putting it into the school department. So that may be kind of a tough choice.
I'm not proposing that. What I'm saying is it's not impossible according to the way that my understanding of town meeting rules is that you can make a motion that would amend the item on the floor to shift money from one area to another within the overall budget. You might not agree with it. What I'm saying is it's possible. That's all. So we can agree to disagree. That makes you feel better. And then my other statement is just relative to the formula. I understand what you're saying about, I think it makes sense that we need to be fiscally responsible and not be asking the town for more money if there are things that need to shift. But I think the formula that you showed us, I forget which slide it was, but with the NSS, the
Net school spending.
net school spending. So just I take issue with making it seem as if that is a flawed formula. Anybody who knows anything about how the state funds schools, and in particular how charter schools are funded and how that draws money away, that's it. I just would say that makes it look not as accurate to the true financial picture as in terms of the actual school budget needs. So, I think that I don't agree with the statement that it's not something that we need to at least consider in terms of what the funds from the town are towards the school. It's my understanding that the appropriation went up by 2.5%, and that barely covers any increased costs, such as cost of living adjustments, or anything, heat goes up, things like that.
Right. So, but let me explain something too. I don't disagree with you. The Chapter 70 formula is totally garbage. Everybody knows that. There was a study done. It's about to the Senate and the House to take care of that. And there's any relief in sight anytime soon, right? So that is a reality. So whether we like it or dislike, but that's the funding formula, right? And if the town did not contribute $9 million, we'll have a totally different school system right now, because we operate on $28 million as opposed to 38, right? So having said that, even if the town, so when I said that I am not ready to go to the town yet to ask for more money, is because we create a budget with a revenue that we don't have. So we are living beyond our means. It's like I want to have the best cars, all the bells and whistles and everything, but my paycheck doesn't cover everything every month. That's our reality. My financial plan that I'll have bring to the school committee next month or this month, it will be to bridge that gap over time. Because we have to get to a point where we are living within our means, meaning that even if the town gives us 2.5%, it covers some, not all, but we need, at that point, I can go and ask for more money. Right now, I can't, because I haven't gone through the budget process deeper enough to understand that every single expenditure is aligned with the priorities of the district and creating the return on the investment. That's the part I don't feel comfortable. I will be going to the town asking for money, not just right now. Even to your point earlier, let's say there was next week there is a whole thing and more money is available to the schools. The money would not go to reinstate the teachers, because that's not the priority. Because the teachers is about, we reduce because of the number of students. So even if there is that effort, that money will never go back to that, because that's fiscally irresponsible. So I don't disagree. I think our effort as a community and joining the school committee and others is to put our legislative delegation to be able to put some more money into the budget, because the report that came out of the commission, it states exactly what the superintendents have been saying for decades now. Now that they have the unbiased committee, Now, they need to create more appropriations at the state and the House. The House is the place where everything gets bogged down. The Senate's more likely to give us more money to Chapter 70, the House balks every time. So if we want to make a difference, let's go to the House, because the House is the place where we are not getting any headway in getting any movement, in getting more, even circuit breaker, okay? The reimbursement is 75%. We fought recently to get 72%. It was a 65% reimbursement. We're not getting any money. And you're right, the charter schools, that formula is absolutely ridiculous. We never get the reimbursement back. The 100% of reimbursement never happened. And the town continues to bleed that money. And it's and for us, and again, not only we're losing students for AMSA, but those that's costing us a lot in the back end, because the reimbursement for charter schools, the town is eating up that cost because it's not getting reimbursed the way it should, the law dictates.
It's my understanding that's increased by about 18% per year the past couple of years. Does that sound?
So I don't think we ever had, since the instatement of charter schools, we never had 100% reimbursement on the first year.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, in terms of how much more of the school budget is going to charter school, like children who opt out into the charter school system. It's my understanding that the increase is 18% per year the past couple of years.
It probably is. I don't have the numbers right now.
So on that, the budget book that you have on the website, and some of this may have changed, but on the special, you have receipts. It's not one of the slides that you have here, I think, but it's in the budget book about the revenue. And so there's special ed aid, and you have it listed as about 1.52 million. And then school choice is about 3 million. But then for actuals for last year, those amounts were about 960,000 and 346. So can you explain a little bit about why we would build a budget on amounts that seem so unrealistic?
Well, that is our biggest predicament. We rely on to balance our budget each year right now, because the school choice account is on a $2.5 million threshold, right? We are relying on an account which equates to about 6% of our budget to balance the budget. The only revenue you can count on is $500,000 each year. That's the number of students we receive. So we have, on average, 100 students who do not reside in Hudson but attend school in Hudson. For every student who comes from out of town, we receive $5,000. So 100, that's $500,000. As long as we have that type of enrollment from from school choice, that's the only money guaranteed towards the budget. But we budget, instead of, which represents maybe 3 or 4% of the budget, we rely on 6% of the school choice to balance the budget. But that's a one-time money. If I spend the $2.5 million I have today in school choice, the following year, the only money I can rely on for school choice is $500,000 income, because I know that those students continue to stay in Hudson. That is our biggest issue right now. And this is an issue that has been kind of creeping out slowly over the past few years. If you look at the history there, I can't remember exactly the numbers, but it was probably 900,000 1 point, then 1.2, then 1.5, then 1.7. All of a sudden now we're 2.5. And that's to me the tipping point, that we can no longer live that way. I want to reduce that so our dependency on the school choice account will be manageable enough, above $500,000, that I know through efficiency in the budget, I can plan a budget and expend every dime I set forth to expend, because my revenue is guaranteed. That's our biggest problem right now. We are living that beyond our means, as I say, because that money is soft money. It's not replenished, not sustainable.
Okay.
Marco,
Thank you for that explanation.
So just to add to that, to make sure it's clear, the school choice account is something that has been carrying over from year to year. If we find savings in the budget in 1 year, we don't spend all the money that we had planned for the school choice account. We save that and use it for the next year. The only way that happens is because year after year, the schools have been putting into place a spending freeze. So the teachers aren't getting the money that they thought they would have in the budget for that year. And we don't want to have to continue to do that every year.
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example. Sometime in in November, we put a budget freeze of 30% across the board, right? That equated about $1 million on the general expense account, right? That means that every budget owner, curriculum everywhere had to reduce their budget by 30%. That's 30% less of money that science had to buy, materials and other things, math and everybody. But if we don't do that, we don't balance the budget. So July 1st, guess what? $2.5 million needs to be start the reduction of that.
So thank you, and I appreciate that explanation. I was at the last school committee meeting, and I remember that coming up, that any expenditures were frozen as of November, which is pretty much the beginning of the school year, so that's obviously. So I guess I would just say, and I think this is a bigger issue than Hudson in particular's town finances and that kind of thing, but I don't, and I know you didn't mean it this way, but I don't think it's fair to equate it to like, we want to, spend money and put it on credit and get a nice car and that kind of thing. I want a class size that's not 23 kids for my daughter's elementary school. I want that she has an English teacher next year at Quinn who can figure out who she is and have the time to like really get her as a student and not be. And I want the teachers to be able to have the supplies that they need. And again, I know we all do what we can as individuals, as families, but the fact that I get a student supply list at the beginning of the year that costs me $70 for one student and $30 for another student, and it's not even about the difference, but I want my kid to have the supplies, and I know that it gets shared because not every kid may be able to have any supplies. But these are the things that I don't know if you as selectmen are aware that we're asked to bring in wipes because the teachers don't have money to buy hand sanitizer and wipes to clean the tables and paper towels and Kleenex, and there's just a lot of things that in my belief we should have as an inherent part of the budget, not that we have to as parents individually bring every single thing that our child needs in a school into the classroom.
I am 100% in agreement with you. My pledge to you is help me get there. Because we need to stabilize the budget before we can get to a point where we can say, let's reduce the class size and maybe at the elementary level, right? So maybe let's make sure that kindergarten classes don't have 22 kids in it. Let's say maybe put a threshold there that's less, right? But to get there, we need to be fiscally sound first. Today we're not. Again, I think my analogy there about having the best and not having income, that's what's happening right now. We build a budget that is more than our revenue, and we know that the money doesn't exist. So we need to get there. So help me get there. Let's work on making these difficult conversations, difficult decisions we have to make to get in 3 years' time, be on a place where we can start thinking differently, not only asking perhaps the town for more money for other things, but also saying, what adjustments can we make to class size? What are the things that we can start now understanding that we can do and be sustainable? Because right now, nothing is sustainable.
Okay.
All right.
No, and I appreciate that, and I think that there were some things that you got handed when you walked in here that were not optimal, and that was, you couldn't do anything about the situation until you got here. It's a little disappointing to me, and I know the school committee folks are volunteers, and we appreciate all the time and energy that you put into the work. I do wonder why things sort of, I guess I would just say, like, if there are high school teachers that are being let go, if there had been a better budgeting process last year or the year before or 3 years ago, maybe there are certain people that could have been not hired in the first place instead of them being hired and let go. And that's something that as a school committee, I hope that you'd give some thought to and, take some responsibility for making sure that we don't repeat mistakes like that in the future.
So just a quick comment, and thank you for that. Again, my mind is that I'm not here to point fingers and do what could have done in the past. The reality is, I am the person now, in leading the system. I need to make, good decisions and tough decisions. Some are going to be unpleasant. But if it gets us to a place where we're going to be better over time, that's where we want to be. And again, it's rough terrain. There's no whether this is what I will see when I came here or not. It doesn't matter. That's my job now, and my job is to be very honest with you. I'm not ever going to give you lip service and say, oh, this happened. I'm going to tell you as is. right? I think it's important for us to have brutal conversations without being brutal about it, right? So they make sure that we can have the tough discussions, be able to understand what it is. Sometimes we're all not gonna agree with everything, but we need to make decisions on behalf of our students. Because without our students, none of us would have jobs, meaning the teaching staff and myself, right? So our job is dedicated to those who serve every day.
Hello everyone, I'm Ben Carmi. You as a committee and students know me as the HHS School Committee representative. My elective job is to fight for the voice of the students. At the last school committee meeting, I addressed my concerns on behalf of the student body. Today, I'm here doing the same. I have a huge concern with the plummeting school enrollment issue, as you do too. We all realize it is an issue, but I want to know what's being done to stop this. This is the exact question I asked Ms. Dufour when I met with her a few weeks ago. The response I got was, I cannot answer that question. The answer wasn't, we are doing everything we can. The answer was, I can't answer that question. I appreciate your honesty, but this crisis the Hudson Public Schools is facing is not being addressed. If it is, it's not effective, and not enough attention is being spent on it. I find it incredibly frustrating to know that we are firing teachers with lives and families and connections with students, these students, over an issue that is not being solved. Why wouldn't you put in all your effort and power to help this crisis? Say we do solve this problem, then do we have to hire those teachers back? What happens when class sizes expand and expand? I am frustrated with the way that you as a committee are brushing off the community and the student body. You may be listening to us, but it seems it's going out one ear and coming out the other. We are your electors. We are the ones who you're supposed to represent. I would like to leave you with the feeling of myself and the student body have felt. I can describe it in one phrase: neglected and utterly disappointed. Take your power and truly listen to the people. Thank you. So I guess my question is, what's being done to stop this issue?
So, as I said, we have a budget issue, and budget equates resources. The plan is being devised so we can start acting on how we're going to reduce the deficit so we can be in a better financial state. What are we doing to maintain students in Hudson Public Schools? We need to make sure that parents and students know what we offer. We need to have parents and the students being well taken care of. Not that they're not, right? But they need that type of attention. We need to have more selection, in every place we have. Right now, my team and I, we did a whole projection of what the courses are, for example, for science and math and everything else. There's big holes in the middle school. We have little things in the elementary school, big holes in the middle school, and then most of all the great opportunities, which I think is fantastic, are in the high school. Now, as a student, if I'm in 5th grade, do I have to wait until I hit the 8th grade to enjoy something that's different other than English, math, science, and social studies? That's not fair. And that's what we're doing about it. We are creating greater, emphasis there. Because right now, unless we start showing the potential, well, why should you stay here? What's the articulation between having a media course, in the middle school and be able to go to HUD-TV in the high school for a day or two? How awesome would that be? What opportunities do we have? We don't. Is high school's there, I'm here with my math, English, science, and social studies and the things that I have surrounding me. We need to expand. If we want the kids to be leaders, if we wanted them to really be exposed to more, we need to offer more. To offer more, we have to reallocate resources, and we have to make sure that we have a budget that can allow us to do that. That's what we're doing right now. The conversation started, in July, as Ms. Dufour said. We had a conversation with the school committee in session, and after that, we've been there every time. We have the goods and the bads, right? And it takes time. This is not something that we resolve over time. The same way the problem that wasn't created in one day, it's not going to be solved in one day. Budgets are very complex. Sometimes systems fail, complex systems fail in the complex ways, right? And needs complex solutions for that as well. So there's no magic wand. I cannot come to you and say I'm going to fix this, by tomorrow or next year, because I can't. Because there are too many moving parts. And at the same time, we haven't gone through a deep budget process yet to allow us to say, are there other monies someplace that we don't need to spend, but we can spend it here? But be mindful of the fact that the number of students in the district dictates how the budget is created. All right, that's the first step. That's the stepping stone, right? As I explained, the October 1st becomes our Bible. If we have 100 students, you're going to have 100, students worth of money the next year, right? So we need to start, but we need to be realistic. The fact that our budget right now does not represent, what we have to expend, and that's not our way of living, right? And again, things have along the way crept up to where we are today. We're not here to say, oh my God, we're going to do it. We are going to do something about it, but it won't be resolved overnight. And the same way I ask, for help me do that, right? Because we need to do this together. Because when the difficult decisions have to be made, and you understand what it is, you're more likely to say, gee, I don't disagree. I don't agree, but at least understand what you're doing, right? That's the space we want to be. We don't have to agree with everything, but we have to be on point that we need to find solutions. And it's not about being heard or not, Ben. It's about, you're part of the process. You're the school committee with us, right? You give your reports, you listen to what we have to say. It's the same idea that when we get to that point, let's work towards the same thing. And when it's time to tell the community what's going on, let's have the same voice, not split voice, where people are going to think we're all disjointed, we don't know where we're going. So we need to have more unity when we talk about the fact that we are going to make tough decisions. This picture is not the greatest, but we own it, and we're going to do something about it. Yeah, but it won't happen overnight.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I appreciate that, but I want to leave you with one last statement. That courses are great, they're fantastic. We all love opportunity and new selection. But I can assure you that these students and other students aren't just staying for the courses. They're staying for the teachers, many of whom are being let go. These are the teachers we work with every day. These are the teachers who teach us everything, curriculum and life skills. So I want to leave you with that one last thing, that these are our teachers and we're here representing them, not just these new classes that are going to be added. We're here because we love our teachers. That's why we're staying in Hudson Public Schools, for our teachers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you. I think one of the things that's very impressive about Hudson Public Schools is actually the relationships that are formed. No question about it. But there's always, again, you're going to have to make tough decisions, And, we have a lot of teachers. Let the teachers continue to have their relationships and form, the best ways of supporting our students, not just academically, but also growing as a person, because everyone here is in developmental stage. We can talk about, sometimes we talk about preschool and kindergarten in developmental stage. Everyone's in developmental stage. And we are a part of life that we need that kind of a constant reminder that we have an adult in our lives, aside from our families and parents and others.
Hi, I appreciate that you are taking the time to discuss this with us as a community. I have seen many districts where superintendents would not take this time, so I appreciate that. My first question is general. What is flex? So could you please go back to the middle school schedule? That's the class, I'm assuming, that you are removing.
Yes, so Flex Block, it was designed to support students in a variety of ways, right? So there are two, the Flex Block is a student will have that one block every day. And in that block, here you go. In that block is where students get some extra, supports, or for those who are, can accelerate, they can get that type of support as well. So it's a way also, the Flex Block, to make sure that students with disabilities are getting the services that they need. So it's a block that is not non-academic, but every other intervention and service are being provided.
So it's a block where all students get equal opportunity for their needs,
Yes.
which is a need.
Well, so again, it was designed to support students beyond the content areas.
Sure.
Right? So there's a variety of things happening in those blocks depending on the student, depending on the need.
Okay. And then could you please?
Yes.
that's also where band and chorus also takes place during flex time. So that's when, it was hard to plan as well, I don't want to speak for the middle school teachers or Jason, but it was a class where kids were leaving. Some kids were there 5 days, some kids were there 3 days. Some were getting extra help, some were working on projects that didn't really challenge them. And it was something I think we would have been looking at anyway, even if we didn't go to teaching a fifth academic block.
So let me just express my concern with that. Is if we have a need where we need to address all learners, meaning the EL population, the special education, and everyone else, and to challenge people because we are losing people to AMSA as well as to ASPET. So I understand your component of trying to install more STEM to accommodate those students so that they don't leave Hudson. But my concern is, if you look at the teacher reduction, I see that you're taking possibly a lot of support away in a situation where you're dealing with 5th, 6th, and 7th graders who probably need the most support in a very large school in 17 teachers. So one whole team is being taken away. So you're going from so much support to a very large reduction. So that's my concern. If you go to Hudson High School, it's the same thing. So you're taking away the 5 teachers. Again, it's a large number. I understand it may not look large, but it is, which is why you have students here. And that was another point I was going to say, is what that young man said is, you know, we don't want to lose students to AMSA and ASPET, and I understand that, but students connect to teachers, and that's a large reduction. If you go to the surrounding communities slide that you put together, accommodating all students requires small class sizes. And if you look, we're pretty good. We have an average class size of 17, which is competing with Neshoba and Westboro. Now granted, they have more students than we do, but everyone else is climbing up in number. My question is, do we want Hudson climbing up in number? We are not Marlboro. We're not a city. Shrewsbury.
We're not Shrewsbury.
So, no, they have a lot more larger students. And working in a city school myself, I can understand that. But I like living in Hudson because my class sizes in Hudson are small. And that's also important to service students. And I don't want Hudson to fall in that gap of, we're going to make our classes bigger, especially at a middle school. That's kind of large.
So the middle school schedule is not the same as the elementary or the high school, where if there's a reduction in teachers, you know, because of enrollment. Think of the high school for a moment. So if you have 100 students in the 9th grade, they all need English 1. So 20 kids per class, you divide by the number of sections, you know how many sections you have. So that's by section. At the middle school is by teams. You either have a team or you don't, because you can't reduce a teacher here and there and decimate the team. I go back to my earlier statement. We need to be fiscally responsible. Is that we're not increasing per se class sizes. That was the goal of the school committee forever, right? We just have to, you know, over time we have smaller size classrooms. But we need to be fiscally responsible and be able to maneuver around how many students we have. That's the only way we can grow, not only internally at great capacity, but also be able to then have a budget that is sustainable, that if in the future we want to decrease class sizes, as I said, in particular grades, we can do that. But right now, we're not fiscally, you know, feasible to do that. Because again, we're spending more than we can actually have as a revenue. I mean, that's the challenge, you know? It's not about preference. We're going by what the school committee has over time devised as the class size, which is 20, okay? Which is, you know, is a very optimal kind of a number. Less is better, absolutely. But maybe we need to get there later on, not now. Because right now, we need to make sure the budget reflects exactly what revenue we have to be able to provide. We need to provide more for our students that we don't have the revenue. So we have to look internally, how can we find efficiency in the budget to be able to actually do things without saying we cannot have the service because we don't have money in the budget, but not giving up all the things that we could for a good portion of time. As I said, I was meeting with the teachers today, and they were asking about if there are going to be any cuts, because of the deficit, the $500,000 we have. I said, no, we're not doing that. But as long as I can cut materials and things, I won't let go of personnel if it's because of a budget cut. Because once you cut an adult or a position, that doesn't come back. But if I put a bunch of expenditures that they equate to a teacher's salary, over time I can bring a program here, a program there, that kind of, I can do that. But right now, there are no budget cuts, that are going to be reducing personnel. This is solely based on the student enrollment.
Hi, I just have two questions embedded within some context. It will take no more than 2 minutes to explain. Hello, administration, faculty, parents, students, and other involved members of the community. My name is Julia Stakonis, and I am currently a freshman at Hudson High School. I recently spoke on behalf of these cuts a few weeks ago at a school committee meeting, but none of the concerns then shared by the community and me were addressed. Yes, I understand a student's perspective is not the most important thing on your plate right now, but it should be. We are being directly affected by these cuts rather than you. I know this is a bill as a budget forum, but many of us were driven here by the enrollment-based cuts, so fine. Reduce some teachers for enrollment issues, but coming in with an axe and eliminating 20+ teachers is extreme. And extreme moves often have unintended negative consequences. We need a gradual decrease in personnel, which would not hurt current academic programs or jeopardize future enrollment. Additionally, the primary question raised with these cuts is class sizes. Members of school committee have mentioned that we will remain at an average of 20 students per class following these cuts. Given that the senior class is far the smallest class K-12, this seems highly unlikely. I took it upon myself to do the math for the classes of my English teacher, Mr. McArdle. His class average right now is about 18.9 or 19 students, and with 2 teachers being eliminated from his department alone, achieving an average of 20 students is far less likely. To reiterate, I understand the thought process behind these cuts, but kids need to take 4 years of English to graduate, therefore meaning that we need to center our focus for not cutting in those kinds of areas. I know it may be impossible to save every teacher being considered for cuts, but please take into consideration these numbers and rethink the cut being made in the English department at the very least. Restoring these positions and pursuing a gradual reduction of district costs sends a message to the community that your current students and future students here are worth the investment, even if numbers means it's possible to justify cuts. Just because a decision can be made does not necessarily mean it should be. I know you don't care about the sappy part of this argument, but Mr. McArdle's he's easily the best teacher I've ever had and one of the most important people in my life. He has given so many students such a platform for expressing themselves in the classroom and just if they need somebody to talk to, and he talks with us rather than at us. Please restore this position. The community and its students will thank you. You briefly talked about enrollment and how it's more enrollment-based than budget, but I did some research with a couple of friends of mine, and we dug up a school committee meeting from August 22nd, 2017. 4 minutes and 35 seconds into the meeting, Dr. Rodriguez stated that, and I quote, "The last year we had less students than right now. Increase in enrollment by 5 to 7 students. All schools have increased in enrollment." Then why are you saying they're decreasing in enrollment? I've gotten a lot of contradictions based on this meeting and prior school committee meetings, and I really think that we need to address this. And I don't really know how we're going to figure out the facts of this because it's really hard to understand some of the things that you guys are saying, especially as a student. But you need to start including the students more, and I don't need to just reiterate what Ben said, but It's just so hard to understand as a student, and we are being directly affected by this. So I think that just that should take some more consideration into looking into. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Christian Silva. I'm a senior at Hudson High. So the reason I'm here is because I actually have a heart for people who get laid off and really do wish the best for people who are going to possibly have a hard time looking for a new job. Second, as I was listening to you, Dr. Rodriguez, you stated, quote, "We need to make sure parents and students know what we offer and to keep them." So my question is, then why do you keep stating that you don't care if students who don't come to Hudson public schools are ones that leave, when it's basically your job to make sure kids stay? So we don't have a student population issue. I believe that it doesn't sound professional as your superintendent to mention that you don't care about students who aren't staying or students who want to stay, when it's your job to encourage people to try and stay and to try and be the best public school out there. So yeah, that's my question. What's like the plan to make sure to be the best public school out there?
Well, again, we are first thing we have to address the budget. Second thing, we have to address what offering we have. Right? Again, our obligation is to expose students to the best education beyond the core content areas. Because granted, if you go to school every day and you have math, English, science, social studies, all the courses that are you need for graduation, great. But beyond that point, how are you being challenged as a student in each grade level? What are you being exposed to? How do you apply your learning? All those things take time, take more diversity, the diversified, range of courses, and be able to expose students, because it's not just about learning what the book is saying. How do I apply my learning? And that's the testament that we have to do. So we need to make sure that everything we do is related to how students are exposed to the best education, to a variety of different scenarios where they can think for themselves, where they can be creative, they can synthesize information, they can actually be, start becoming an adult over time, and be able to be great contributors to our society, going to become leaders. So how do we do that? By exposing them to the best scenarios so they can be exposed to a variety of things. So that's what our strategy is. But we have a budget issue. And at the same time, again, it's not as simple as, 2 and 2 is 4. The budget is a complex business. And we make sure that not only we comply with everything we need to comply, there are restrictions with grant money, there are restrictions about what we can and cannot do. But unfortunately, the reduction in personnel needs to happen because the decline in student enrollment that has occurred for the last 7 to 12 years. That's a fact. I don't create those numbers. Those numbers are at the Department of Education website. I just transpired them into the PowerPoint. These things are real. And if we need to create a budget that complies with the standards of practices, meaning that you look at the enrollment, the types of services you by law you need to provide, and the programs you need to offer to challenge your students, that's the 3 layers that we have to pay attention to. And as I said, there's no quick fix, and there's no easy way of looking at this, but making hard decisions. And that's what I'm doing right now. And again, I offer the same pledge here. Help me get there. Once we get there, then we can make perhaps decisions where prioritize other things that we didn't have before that we can have next time. I think that's the important part to consider. As everyone has a voice, but everyone has an opportunity to be partners and be able to speak about something that together we can create not only a sound budget, but create a school system that offers more for our students to be able to be exposed to more and be able to then apply their learning.
Okay, with all due respect, Dr. Glutt, if you keep saying that you don't care about students who are leaving and your focus is the students who stay here, what makes the students want to stay in the Hudson Public Schools? How are you going to make it better if every student is leaving? Every answer you stated was there's a budget problem. I'm sure we all get it, right? So, what's next?
I don't believe I said
You
that.
did.
I don't believe I said that I don't care.
You did. I quoted.
Okay. What I'm saying is,
I'm speaking. Okay.
what I'm saying is, I have no control over that. I have no control of parents' choice and student choice. I met with a mother this past Monday, and it was a mother from the middle school, and she had concerns about not about the budget because her son is exiting the 7th grade, but her concern was my child decided not to go to Hudson High next year. and he's going actually to a private school. And I asked her if she wants to meet with me because I'd like to know more about why the decision. And she had a very compelling story to tell. And her compelling story was very much in line with what our practices are. That, things it needs to be a little more challenging, it needs to be a little more diverse for students to understand like her son has a mind of his own, he knows what he wants, and he doesn't think that the perception in his mind is that the high school cannot offer to him that. How did he create that perception? So I have no control of that. I met with her to see if there's any way that I could do, but that he's leaving. And she vouched that he will be back in Hudson at one point in time because she cannot afford private school for a long time. But the point is if a parent decides for the student to go, I have no control over that. Now, what I care about, and I'll restate that, is for those who stay here, I have an obligation to. And hopefully over time, those who stay entice others to stay. Because we are often more, we are having great opportunities, and therefore those will be the incentives for one to stay. But if a person wants to go, they're gonna go. We cannot stop.
Isn't it our job to make sure students stay?
Yes, but I cannot control a parent's wish. One day you're going to be a parent, and if you decide for your child to go elsewhere, you have no obligation. Public school's public school. That's what it means.
Okay, well, just to end this, then I feel like that just means you're giving up. Like, I think you should just try harder to make sure they stay. Therefore, we'll be like one of the best.
Thank you.
Hi. My name's Jen. I am a former and proud Hudson High graduate. I'm a teacher. I'm a parent. I work in the English department at Hudson High School. There are a couple things. The first is that I think my colleagues are disappointed with how the rollout of all this information came to us. I can tell you that at the high school level, just about all our electives have been cut because of 2 English teachers being cut. So the choice has gone down there. So when you're saying that all these programs are still going to be here and that all this choice is available, that's not the case next year at the high school, at least in the English department. And I guess the 2 questions that I have are a little more philosophical because you seem to be a superintendent who's interested in a 20-to-1 ratio and focused on numbers. I would like a superintendent that has visions that have to do with things like student-to-teacher ratios, like what small class sizes can do, and why can't that be a district priority, that we have one of the best teacher-student ratios ever, if we want to build a budget according to a district priority. I'd like that to be a priority. I also think that, I forget my other thing. That these layoffs have to do with student enrollment and not the budget, but students are tied to money. So of course it's related to money in the budget. So I feel like the reframing of that is a spin. And that's it.
Hi. I have a couple of different subjects I'd like to touch upon. The first one is I agree with Jen. I'm very concerned with the student-teacher ratio. I have spent a lot of time looking at the enrollment numbers, and I think in one of your budget statements you mentioned from FY12 to FY18 that I think we might be down, I might transpose my numbers, 238 kids maybe. So when I divide that out, 13 grade levels, you come to maybe 18 students per grade. That to me is not a huge decrease in enrollment. I also looked at the trends and projections up till FY22. I talked with the town clerk's office. I got the federal numbers, not the local census numbers, because the local census numbers are not accurate because about 1/3 of the residents have not submitted their census forms. And my projections come at least 100 to 200 students more than what you have presented in your slideshow this evening. So I just want to say that I don't feel comfortable with your projections, saying that we're declining. I believe that we are going to need to maintain our teachers, who we have on board right now, to provide the successful education for each and every student that we have here in Hudson. I also want to say that I've looked through the budget. I've been studying it since all this came out. I'm very, very upset as a community member, as a past Hudson Public School employee, that these budget cuts for our teachers were kept secret. Now, I know you're going to say, well, we could have attended a budget meeting. Well, I'm sorry, but I worked 20 years in the public schools, and I never experienced something like this being hit. And if I firmly believe that if we had known that these cuts were a possibility, that we would have been there to listen and to offer our input. And I also, from my past experience, when we've had major changes in our system, like when we redistricted or when we transitioned and opened Quinn, we had committees formed which included administration, teachers, parents, community members. And we worked, I was on both of those two committees. We worked tirelessly, volunteering our time. It wasn't during school. It was volunteering our time to make sure that everyone was aware of what was happening, and we were going to provide the best opportunities for our students. So I just want you to know who we are in Hudson. I don't think you've learned that yet. I think that you're here, you're a superintendent, but you need to know who your community is. We want to be involved in changes. We want to know input. We don't want a secret. I mean, we watch many school committee meetings. I've looked at every agenda. I've never seen anything that has talked to us about teacher layoffs, about 3 teams being reduced at Quinn. We worked so hard when we were creating Quinn. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, we developed this beautiful school. Brian Daniels is in our audience tonight. He was the principal of that school at that time. He worked tirelessly. We have beautiful teams up there, beautiful wings. I don't want my grandchildren and my future grandchildren that are going to be entering school shortly, I don't want them in class sizes of 25 to 1, 26 to 1. And I know it's going to happen with the numbers that I've seen. So that I just want you to know that. And I want you to, I guess my next 2 things, I have 2 other questions. I'll stick with the budget for now because I see professional development has increased twofold. It's doubled. Professional development, I don't understand that, but I've seen that attorney and accounting fees have increased over $100,000 in 2 years. That's a huge increase. And I also would like to know if you can defend the budget, the personnel budget that has increased in the superintendent's, administration, and supervision departments of $500,000. And I don't even know if people know this, and the teachers line has decreased over $300,000. Now to me, and I've worked several areas, I've worked in computer industry, worked in medical industry. When I make a flow chart, you've got your leader, and you've got your people under him, and then it gets, so normally a flow chart looks like a triangle. I think your flow chart is now looking like an upside down triangle. To me, the most important people in the system are the teachers. They are the the SPED department, yes, we need everything. There are so many children out there who are needy. We need that. And I understand we need to provide ELL services. No doubt in my mind about that. What I don't understand is everything else.
Okay, so let me clarify.
I need to know that we have more teachers servicing our kids, and I want, if it's 17 to 1, great. 20 to 1, great. I don't want to see more than that.
Okay, so let's talk about the budget, because you made the remark that the budget has increased in the superintendent's office, right? So for everyone to know how budget is reported to the state, every line item on the budget that has to do with personnel is codified, so it shows how many English teachers we have, how many social studies teachers, how many special education, how many paraprofessionals, how many paraprofessionals for special education, for non-special education, secretaries, curriculum directors, everything is codified. So the state can gather information on what type of composition a school district has. So very often, those things get redone by the state. So we move things around. So when you look at last year's budget, when there was not an assistant superintendent, and this year there's one, right? And then also, under the administrative piece, I think we have some of the special education positions that were created falls under that category. Again, I demonstrated to you the money is the same, it's just the line is being reported elsewhere. So you're gonna see increase in one place, decrease in another, but our budget is $500,000 more than last year in total. Teachers' contracts, okay, and every other contract we have with the paraprofessionals union, the secretaries, the custodians, the cafeteria workers, all those raises alone, okay, is over the steps, not even raise, just the steps when one moves to step 3 to step 4, right? That alone is over $600,000. So when you think of the fact that the budget only went up about $500,000, and the cost of living associated with those scales is even more than that, you can see that we increased the budget basically about the salaries that are naturally contractually embedded in the budget. So we have not created more positions because I show you so. And now, depending on what position, it gets funneled elsewhere. You mentioned professional development. Past years, there were 28 budget owners in the Hudson Public School. Meaning 28 people had budget allocated to them so they could be the owners of the expenditure under that budget. Basically, almost every owner had a piece of professional development money attached to that. So we took most all of that and created a bucket that says professional development, because again, we need to prioritize how professional development is provided. Thus, what you see in there is an inflation of the PD line and much more, not new money. It's just the money that was all around and was now condensed into one line item. That's what the budget is. I think I encourage you to, when you look at the budget, there is the summary, which shows this differential, right? Then go to the page where it shows the detail. And sometimes the detail shows that it was carried over from another line. Sometimes it doesn't. It's not that perfect. But that's what you have to look at, because the budget, again, didn't go more than last year. And this is based, I think we have economized. I think we have created more, resources with the money that we have. But what you're experiencing there is line items projecting money that was just taken from different locations and put in a different line item. Because that's how we report to the state.
Well, I don't want to say names, but the person that's up for the assistant superintendent, where was her salary? What line item would she have been under?
Let me go back to the slide.
Because I couldn't find that.
Let me show you.
I just want more teachers.
No, I understand.
And
But,
if you can move money around, then move it to the teacher slot.
Right, okay, but I need to clarify, because you're making a claim that's not true. So,
No, I'm asking you where it was.
right, so
I have
assistant
the facts,
superintendent
yes.
for curriculum, right? The money was under director of elementary curriculum, who was at a retired position last year. So when I came on board, that person had just retired. So that money, that allocation for that money became a new position. Again, each one of these positions, the director of math and science curriculum was one person for both subjects.
Right.
Okay, that person retired, right? So that position became the science position. Then the high school had a math coach who also resigned, and that position became the director of math. So I split math and science, because when you look at our student achievement in math and science, that's our poorest of the achievements, right? So we need to make sure that people had attention to the curriculum to support our teachers. One person cannot have two math and science. It's too broad of a curriculum, right? So that's what happened there. Then the coordinator for special education was at the high school, was transformed in a coordinator for special education, right?
Can you elaborate on that position?
Yes. So every special education student has an IP. I'm sure you're familiar with that, right? Every IEP has either an annual meeting or a 3-year reevaluation. And somebody has to chair those meetings by law.
Right.
Before, and you see here, the stipend, the chair stipend.
Yes,
We
that's how it
had
used to be.
teachers, having second hats and serving as, right?
Right.
As a result of that, we were getting to complications about services and how does that teacher who serves our district well know what's available in another school if the student is transitioned to another school. So it was imperative that we did that. So you know, that's one of the things that was flagged under the Walker, report. Before I got here, there was a whole comprehensive evaluation of special education, and that's one of the things that was highlighted there. When I came in, to me, that's a priority, because there's no way that we can have, we need to have a specialized person only in the team meetings, because the team process is very complex, and not every parent understands that. So we need to make sure that parents are supported there. So we created one position for the elementary and one position for the high. The elementary goes through grade 5, so they see the transition to the middle school, and then the other person picks up at grade 6, go to the high school. So these two people, one was a reallocation of source. The other one, that was not in the budget. That's why it's at 0. And I had to find $90,000 to support that position. Then the other ones continue to be exactly the parity. And this stipend here, the $16,000, is what the stipend we used to pay for teachers. And no longer, it was $4,000 per teacher. Now that's being economized. And that's what we got to the last statement, that $622,000, the cost of that. But only if you take the 90, it's exactly 535 in change. It's a reallocation of resources.
Well, I want to urge you to please try to reinstate the teachers that you have cut. I want you to try to find funds for that. And the next question is, when I read the budget about, this is to do with Quinn, you talked about an innovation academy that was supposed to be starting in grade 5 in the fall. Year after would go to grade 6, year after would go to grade 7. But I hadn't seen anything tonight that talked about Innovation Academy. So
Those plans have been deferred to FY20, so we're not going to do anything next year.
when were we going to be informed of that?
Again, it
And where
was.
did that one go?
the
Because
project-
it was there the other day at school committee.
No, I haven't talked about the Innovation Academy for a while. It's one of the things that
Oh,
we.
yes, a parent questioned you on the first night. She questioned you about the Innovation Academy. Because she has twins going into 5th grade. So maybe you need to rewind and we can
I'll look
rewatch that.
back at the
but-
tapes, yes.
Yes.
They were,
Ask that question.
Oh, that was you?
yeah.
What did I respond to you?
You said that there'd be information forthcoming. I
Okay.
had asked at parent-teacher conferences at the elementary level, but they had no information for me.
Okay.
So I know Quinn has a big meeting coming up, so I'm hoping a lot of those school-specific questions
Will
can
be,
be answered then.
yes.
So that's
Not for this year.
not for this year.
Yes.
And the teachers that, okay, so I need to rewind a little bit. So in the budget, when it said Innovation Academy, 4 core teachers and 1 enrichment teacher, that's not happening now?
For us to roll out an innovation school does not necessitate new positions.
No, I'm just saying what was in here, what was in your budget.
Right, but if you look at there, it's cost neutral. It's not, there's no cost associated with that. So if you look at the budget.
Right, it was
itself-
reallocation.
Right.
It was reallocation funds, and there was nothing next to the enrichment position.
Correct, because it's all there already. We don't need to create all the enrichments because we're already creating the related art services.
So those 4 core teachers that you have in here as Innovation
Our
Academy,
existing teachers.
they're not part of the 12 that were cut?
No.
No, I
What-
mean, they're not, all right, so you cut 12 teachers, but these 4 core that you're talking about, weren't they gonna be additional teachers coming back in?
Oh, you're talking about the
Yes.
literacy, numeracy, and.
No, not those specialists,
Okay.
no.
Now, so the innovation, the academy,
Right.
right? When we are ready to do that, we
Right.
will not be adding staff. It will be the existing staff,
So it'll still be 2 teams on
Two
each
te-
grade
right,
level, and
exactly.
one of those teams is gonna be an innovation
not the
academy?
entire team, because it doesn't
Not
mean that we have, 200 students in the for the academy. So you might be a cohort of 20 students, 40 students. If that's what it is, it would be just, teachers developing that within their own schedule. So the students are the same, they're gonna be grouped together, they're gonna travel together, but they're gonna have, something differentiated for their abilities.
I apologize, I'm taking up a long time here, but I just need to understand this. And now all these extracurricular activities, or what do you call them, electives
Yeah,
that you're
the
offering
related
at
arts,
Quinn.
yes.
Who is actually teaching those, all those different things? Who's teaching those?
Well, we are hiring the STEM and the humanities, and then we already have a technology, we have an engineering, and
So you're hiring 2?
we're hiring 2, yes. And we have 2. So 4 teachers will be responsible for that new portion,
Okay.
that you see there. And the numeracy teacher and the literacy teacher, those are the teachers to support students who are struggling academically in reading and in math.
Okay, so we're really covering every student who has special needs or,
That's unrelated.
no, I
For
know,
those they
or
have-
struggles.
Right, exactly.
And now we're kind of hurting our regular kids because we're making class sizes a little bit larger.
I don't see it that way.
You don't, and I do, but we'll disagree on that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello. Hi, I'm Buffy Patella. I'm a senior at Hudson High School. And I also am a delegate to the State Student Advisory Council with the Massachusetts Board of Secondary Education. So I get to talk to kids from other schools all the time about their class sizes, how their schools are run. And one thing that I think Hudson has beat by a lot of other schools is, again, I know the class sizes keep coming back up, but I think that is by far something that's much different. Like I have someone who serves on the board with me, goes to Acton Boxborough, and his class sizes are about 25, 26 people. It's really difficult, and it's a lot of self-teaching. And I know that there's a lot of kids in the school that cannot self-teach. I've had teachers in the past who have given me things to self-teach, and that's very difficult to do. And it's hard to do that when you have more than 20 kids in a class. It's very difficult. But what I'm more concerned about here is I wanted to know more about the new elective courses at the middle school. So I went to JOK. I never went to Quinn. I don't know I've been in Quinn once. I don't really know what it looks like. I was that last class that was out. The class after me got to go to Quinn for the first time. So that kind of was a little awful. But I go with the bricks coming off the walls and everything. I love that gym class. Okay, besides the point. I'm not wrong though. People remember this. It's not crazy. I wanted to know, because I'm so confused on, so would the students be able to choose what classes they would be taking? Are there certain classes that you have to take? I'm concerned from an arts perspective, because I feel like a lot of times, 5th graders, they're not going to know what classes to take, and I feel like their parents are going to push them into these math and science classes and not be like, hey, let's sign them up for a drama class, or let's put them in an art class. That's why I loved when I was in middle school, you had to take drama and you had to take art. And if I didn't take those classes, I don't know where I would have been today. Like, those classes kind of led me to the path. I now work with HUD-TV. I've actually worked with some of the revamping campaign stuff here with the district. I've made videos for 8th grade orientation. I've done stuff like that. I'm concerned with the arts. I'm approaching this from a slippery slope effect. I know it's kind of bad, but I'm afraid that you're cutting these teachers. Okay, I get it. But what's next? You're going to cut the arts. You're going to cut Miss McKenzie from the drama department. What's next? I'm concerned from that perspective, because I know how important the arts are, and I know that the sciences are important too. But kids need some arts in the school.
So, no, and I appreciate what you just said, because there will be a balance, right? So it's not, even if a student likes STEM more than art, they're going to still have art. It's going to be a balanced kind of schedule. It's not like all of one or the other. I think that the part of the exposure I was talking about is really allowing students to have that flavor. That might change your life, right? Because it might be something that you want to do art forever because you're so engaged in that, or something that I didn't do well in that, but I like some robotics or something else, right? So, but we need to expose every student to that, right? So there will be a balance in middle school. So even though there's a large variety there, and they have a number of quarters that they can be populated, there will be a balance.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right? Yes.
So I spoke at the last meeting. I read an email that I had written. I prepared something tonight. I've gone back and forth to try to shorten it a little bit, but here it is. Deciding to lay off some 20 teachers, and that number may be a little different now, without involvement from the people that the school committee and the superintendent purport to represent is a bad idea. Parents were not given any indication that such drastic teachers' cuts were even being considered until the teachers were notified. That type of representation is not what I would expect from people entrusted to represent others. This is not a fiefdom. You have been entrusted to see to it that the children of Hudson have the best education that we can provide, and this decision is in direct conflict with that mission. I've spoken to many teachers and administrators over the past 3 weeks, and be assured, you have a serious morale problem as a result of these terminations. What you have decided will have long-lasting ramifications in the form of losing good teachers and administrators to other districts because they're not happy with the leadership here. Our children deserve continuity. It is crucial that the great teachers remain in this district. The teachers that you are cutting in many, if not all cases, are great teachers. Have you really listened to the kids speak about them? That's rhetorical because I know that it's fallen on deaf ears. They support our kids outside the classroom by coaching and volunteering to head up clubs. In one example, an AP class at the high school will either need to be cut from the curriculum or someone will need to be qualified to teach it because that is the only person, one of the cuts is the only person who teaches that class. Taking these things from our kids is an unconscionable act. By inviting constant turnover among your teachers and administrators, you will exacerbate the morale problem you have created, and it will spiral downward. Not only will you lose school choice children who come here by choice, but you will also lose more kids within this district to the Assabets and the Amsters of the world than you do now. As a real estate agent, I cannot stress strongly enough the impact that a good school system has on our property values. Word that Hudson has slashed 20 or so teachers all at once will most certainly spread to neighboring towns. It already has. Unfortunately, perception is reality, and the mere perception that Hudson does not value education enough to find a way to keep its fine young talent will harm the town's current reputation. All recent goodwill and accolades being heaped upon Hudson because of the addition of so many new and thriving businesses downtown will disappear. Hudson has become a destination town for many people. Why turn that reputation in the other direction? Your decision to cut teachers is going to jeopardize that momentum, and it surely will negatively affect property values. I deal with people all the time who are looking to buy homes, and they still ask about schools more than anything else. In an article written by Sam DeBoard for Realtor.com in June of 2016, the data indicated that half of the home buying population is willing to pay more than their intended budget to get into the right school district, and more than half would give up other amenities to do so. I also did some other searching, and I found a Boston Magazine article that ranked 125 districts either touching 495 or to the east of 495 in Massachusetts. Okay. I'm aware that the town spends more than the mandate, okay, that the state mandates. I would hope that we strive to be better than average. Our per pupil expenditures are less than the statewide average. Lastly, I looked at median home prices, and guess what? There's a direct correlation. Some of the towns that you had listed up on your sheet are here, okay? Lincoln Sudbury, $16,679 per pupil, number 12 out of 125. Their median home value in Sudbury is $700,000, $1.2 million in Lincoln. I know we're not Lincoln and we're not Sudbury. Berlin, Boylston, is that a little closer for us? $19,357 per student, ranked number 53. Berlin's median 406, Boylston 376. Maynard and Marlborough, 96 and 105 respectively. Their median values 345 and 335. Hudson's at 90 out of 125. $350,000 in median property value. If you want to see that evaporate, keep cutting teachers. Okay? So, my questions are, did you speak to, other than people on the school committee, Have you spoken to anybody who supports this decision? Anybody?
Of course.
How many people? Yes, I'm not gonna hold you to any specific number. Give me a
I'm
ballpark.
not gonna quantify that, okay? It's,
I know
again, it's a difficult decision. But I think we have to be cautious about not saying that because we are reducing so many teachers, that the Hudson Public Schools do not have enough teachers left to hold the fort and to provide quality for our students. I think that's, to me, that's what it's kind of the more I listen to everybody, I understand the relationships, I understand the difficult things we have to create here. But at the same time, for us to just do a blanket statement that if the teachers go, the Hudson Public Schools will disappear because the teachers who are left are not worthy? Because that's how I'm listening to it.
No.
Well,
You have a morale problem. Your teachers don't trust you, and they don't trust the school committee to make the right decisions. Period. Okay? Number one. Number two, my other question, I'm gonna stop taking all the time from these kids who are lined up because they care. Did anybody on the school committee consider property value when you made this decision? At all? Did it come out of anybody's mouth?
Yes.
And how was that discussed?
Kevin, I will just say, and I'll say this to the kids too, you pointed out we're at number 90. We need to do better. We can't do better.
You're gonna do better by cutting 20 teachers from the department?
If I were moving to this town, I'd want to see what was offered to my kid in middle school. I'd want to see what was offered to my kid in terms of support. I mean, it's not like we didn't think this through.
Yeah, and just another point about real estate. I have a relative who's in real estate. They've had people say the exact opposite, where they were looking at a home and they said, well, I don't really know if we want to move here because we've heard bad things about the school. So I think we all want to see things get better. That's our goal. There are different ways to get there. I think you can go counterpoint to some of the facts. So there are things about class size.
So why do this in the dark? Why did we not know until the teachers were all fired?
So, to be completely honest, that was not the intent. For me anyway, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I think everyone feels the same. That was not the intent. We have our meetings, and granted, I understand everyone's busy, I'm busy, and to be aware of when they are, what's going to be discussed isn't easy, and we need to take that on as something we're going to communicate better, which came out a little while ago.
But this is facing us as this huge problem that could have been dealt with in a different way. That people who care, you can't get 50 people to show up at a free lunch, and you've got 175 people or more in here tonight. Why? Because we're infuriated. Okay? Not everybody wants to stand up here like I am. We're infuriated. This is not the way to do it.
Myself, I don't want to speak for others, but if I could do it over again, I would do some things differently. So it's a learning process.
And we all could do that in life, and I appreciate that, okay? I do. But let's reconsider cutting 20 teachers from the budget that these kids care about, okay? Why do they care about them? They don't care about their parents as much as they care about them. Trust me, okay? I'm not joking. It's not, I know it's getting laughs, but that's not what I mean. These kids communicate with these younger teachers that you're cutting. Why? Because they're closer in age to them at the high school level, even at the middle school level. These kids have so much to deal with these days, and to take these people who they care about away from them is just the wrong way to go. There's got to be another solution.
And I hope you don't think that's why these changes are being made. It's not because of personal connections or taking those away. It's to try to improve things. You can't, at least my point of view is you can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. So we're trying to do something different. And part of that, it's tough decisions. For me as a parent, I have a son in 3rd grade, and I want him to have options as he gets older and be exposed to things. I feel like that's my responsibility as a parent. And one way to do that is through schools. And basically what you're asking us to do is do away with programs that will provide that opportunity to some kids in order to keep class sizes small. And there's questionable data about the impact of class sizes, especially at the higher level. The more important thing is around teacher development. And that's where we put more resources and we have a bigger focus. That's one reason
People
we've
are
done
more
that.
important than programs, period.
Right. That's professional development is about the people.
But you're cutting 20 teachers.
Understood.
You don't cut your arm off because you have a hangnail. So we try to figure it out in a different way
we're
going
gonna have
forward.
to
Why not
agree to
take
disagree.
attrition rates and take, 2 or 3 teachers a year and figure that out based on what's going on? To lop off 20 teachers at one time to me seems way too extreme. And I'll listen to your answer and I'll cede my time to everybody else.
I mean, I don't know that I have an answer because some of this stuff, honestly, it's going to be that we'll just have to agree to disagree in some cases. Intelligent people can do that. Some of you may question intelligence with me, but the intention is there to try to drive improvement. And I'll go back to what I said. You can't keep doing the same things and expect different results. We have to make changes.
That came up way in the beginning. I think it was the second question about why are we doing this? Actually, it was a student that said, why are we doing this so drastically? Why can't we do it slower? And I think Kevin's getting that back. And I think the second question was, how did school committee let this happen? Well, I'll tell you from being on school committee going into my 3rd year, we have made those gradual cuts. And we've done it through attrition, and we've done it through people leaving and retiring and maternity leaves and things that weren't filled. And that was the nice way to do it. We didn't pull someone from in front of a kid that wasn't already leaving. We didn't take someone's job from them. That made us feel better, but it left us with a program that wasn't meeting our needs. It left us with people in positions that we didn't need as much as programs that we need. And it got to the point where being nice wasn't working. And I know this is like pulling off a Band-Aid. I know it hurts. I know it's not the way anyone wants to see it to happen. But if we want to create new programs, we need to have resources. And no one wants to see a lot of people go at once, but to chip away at positions just because someone was leaving also left us in a bad place. Ms. Wadsworth?
Hi, Dr. Rodriguez. And 2 things you said tonight stood out to me. The first was no one likes surprises. You have a room full of people here because no one likes surprises. We don't either. It's been said already. We didn't appreciate the way this was done. If you had told us there was a chance that 20 teachers would be cut back in January or whenever it was being considered, we would have been there to support you. Behind you with the Board of Selectmen, whatever needed to be done. We're all here. We would have been there. So that's just a statement. The second statement was living beyond our means. You talked about, the Cadillac, and we've been living off school choice money. And, times are tough. We have a deficit. The budget is hurting. So we need to do more with less. So that brings me back to your administration office. Now, I know you gave us the chart that it's a 1-for-1 here. The dollar amount is not too different. However, what I don't see up there is a new position. So right now we have the superintendent and you have an executive assistant, right?
Yes.
So we have added this assistant superintendent that we have not needed, certainly not in difficult times. And I just saw a position posted on School Spring for an executive assistant for the assistant superintendent, another $60,000 a year. That's not up on your chart. So if we're trying to live within our means, not live off school choice money, and we're cutting 20 teachers, why do you get to live more lavishly in the administration?
Let me explain to you. So the position you saw advertised is a vacant position, okay? Is a secretary. When you see I have an executive assistant, is my secretary, who is also the secretary for the school committee. That's Julia, right? That's you see in the school committee. So they have administrative duties to do. So the person who was the secretary for curriculum, okay, in the curriculum office, and also supported, our technology director, got another job because that person retired, and she going to another job. So that job that you see advertised is the curriculum director, and part of that person's job will be to support the assistant superintendent because of Teach Point, which is our system that we provide professional development for our teachers, and teacher evaluation, and also will support the Title I kind of structure, the money, right, the bookkeeping on that. That's what you see there. It's not a new position, it's an existing position, which is vital to the running of the district. The curriculum directors are out in the field all day long. They need a support system, and that's not a new position. So what you see is a vacant position that has been advertised because there was a retirement at the end of March. The person who was in that curriculum position got that job. She's now in finance, and that position became available, being advertised.
So I'm sorry, so what was the position before? It was who retires?
The retirement was the payroll department person. She retired on March 30th.
And would that person have been doing this role that you're talking about, this executive assistant to the superintendent?
No. So that position became available. So the person who was in the curriculum office got that job. So now the curriculum secretary became vacant and is being advertised. And as we're doing everything, every position in central office, we're looking to maximize people's jobs. And part of that position now, because that position will no longer be supporting the director of technology, so there was a day or two there in the FTE that the person can have greater responsibilities. And their responsibilities now include Teach Point and the Title I money. So that's what the person's, again, we are retooling every resource we have, maximizing people's potentials. But the vacancy you see right now in School Spring is the position that was vacant.
Hi, I'll be quick here. You know, as many people have stated here, I think Hudson is known for the small class size. You yourself here today have stated that once you make a cut, you don't get it back. You're going to cut 3 teams from Quinn. We're never going to get that back. You're going to increase the class size. We're never going to reduce it again.
So I was just reminded here that early in the year, right, our class size at Mulready in first grade and our class size at kindergarten at Forest started to grow. We did not have money in the budget allotted for that, but we added a teacher at Mulready for kindergarten, an extra class, and we added another first grade position at Mulready. Again, our commitment is to make sure that if the number of students rise in a particular grade, we need to maintain that focus. So again, it wasn't budgeted. We need to find the money someplace because what's important to us is make sure that we maintain that ratio. So it goes every year. There are different fluctuations that happen. And when it happens, our attitude and money is to go to where our mouths are, meaning that we are committed to the 20 kids per class. And if that's our commitment and it's our focus, we have to make sure that we find money in the budget that's not been allocated for that to be able to support such a range. So we added 2 teachers, it was early September.
Marco, can you go over, I know Steve and I met with you about what would happen if class sizes got to 24 at Quinn and what would kick in, because there is a plan as to how to increase if we do need it.
Right, so I should have brought there is a schema when we look at when's the tipping point, right? For example, let's talk about Mulready for a second. When Kelly came to me and said, I have 2 classes right now, one with 23 kids, one with 24 kids. I said, let's keep monitoring that. All of a sudden, those 2 classes became 25. The tipping point is 24. So once the threshold into 25, we added a teacher. So now that class of 25 to 25 became 3 classes of about 16 kids per class, which is a greater, much more, doable number, but that necessitated because we had the tipping point. When you go to the middle school, the same thing. The middle school is a little more challenging than the high school or the elementary school because it's about teams. So when you talk about a whole team, you need to have a certain number of students to support teams. Because if teachers are going to have an average of 20 students per class, you're going to have an increase of about 100 kids to support a team, right? Because that's how you logistically think of the number of students per class. And if teachers are teaching 5 classes per day, the equation is there. So there is a tipping point. So anytime we get to that threshold, it triggers something. I mean, I don't anticipate, this year something of that nature happening. But if it does happen, we have to do that. We're not going to just ignore and say, oh well, the class size went up and there's nothing we can do about it. Because again, if our priority is to maintain that range, that level of about 20 students per class, we have to make sure that all dollars associated with that goes to that particular, grade or classroom. Now, at the high school, the same thing. All of a sudden, we have an influx of students in a particular grade. Same idea. How many sections do you need? If this average section goes about 20 kids, a teacher teaches, 5 sections a day, that's about 100 students, right? And I think someone said earlier about electives being reduced at the high school. I have not heard from the principals of such thing. So the number of students in the high school will go by the core courses required for graduation. That's number one. And after that, we go for all the courses that we value as electives, and then we populate that. When we talked about 20 students per class at the high school, we did not talk about AP courses, electives, none of that. It's only the core content areas. So you might still have a French class with 7 kids in it. You might still have an AP class with 12 kids in it. We're not changing that. That's not has been part of the conversation. It was always to maximize the core content areas, the classes that your typical English, math, science, and social studies required for graduation. So that's where we are. So there is no evidence yet that we're decimating the electives, because again, we have a number of teachers per content area, and then as we do the schedule for those students, it go back to, if you create a class that has about 20 students per class, you know how many sections you need, therefore you know how many teachers you need if every teacher teaches 5 of those courses.
So hi, I'm a sophomore at Hudson High, and I just wanted to ask about a couple different things. So my first question was about the science department and why you decided to cut so many science teachers, because I know personally I'm going to be taking AP chemistry next year, hopefully, and I'm worried about my success in the course, because I know that the teacher that I thought was going to be teaching it, and I knew her and I knew I would do well with her because I'm doing well with her right now.
But all the classes that need to be held will be held, because that's part of how we build a schedule to make sure that all the courses that are needed are going to be in place. Okay.
My next thing was just, I know personally that I'm currently in 2 classes with 30 kids, my Spanish class and my history class, which is considered a core class. So I'm just wondering how you take into value that there are classes with bigger class sizes, and I find that sometimes I can't perform as well because I don't feel like the teacher can give me the one-on-one support or one-on-one instruction if I'm struggling in a topic, because there's so many other kids in the class, and I just don't know that if smaller classes are something that we advertise and are a plus for students, why aren't we keeping that to help kids stay in our school, which is obviously a problem because enrollment is going down. So why aren't we keeping the smaller class sizes to keep kids in the school?
So there were no reduction in personnel in social studies. The reason for that, not only because we have the greatest amount of electives in social studies, is also all the classes were being maximized. I think when you look at the schedule for the middle school and even for the elementary school, there will be those incidences where one class might have 27 kids, right? That's not uncommon, because again, it's when the principal and the guidance counselor create the schedule, sometimes it lends itself that way, right? But it's not a practice that we would like to have. But there will be those singletons, there will be those classes that perhaps have more kids.
But how is that fair to those kids that have to be stuck in those classes with more kids in them and can't perform as well?
Well, again, every time we build a schedule, we try to have for every class an amount of about 20 kids. So that's what we are trying to build right now.
Okay, and my last thing is, I know personally I have siblings. They are twins. They are in 7th grade and they're coming to the high school next year. And I'm worried for them because I'm not sure that they're going to get the same education as me and my older sister have gotten. And just in general, have you considered asking the kids what they want in their classes? Have you asking the children and what they're going to be taking as their classes, have you considered asking them, sending out surveys to past students, sending them out to current high school students of what they wanted to see when they were in middle school, of what they're taking now that they wish they had in middle school? Because I'm personally interested in the arts. I take drama, I'm in drama society, I do more things that are related to art. I'm just worried that we're not letting kids have, or there's not classes, and enough classes dedicated to the arts as compared to STEM, which is obviously important because our whole life centers around STEM, because obviously we're made up of science and all this. But have you considered doing things that more stimulate other parts of the brain and adding more classes that allow kids to branch out when they're younger and realize what they might want to do when they're older, like in the arts?
That's what we're trying to do across the board, right? So again, arts, music, performing arts, we haven't touched that. That whatever you have this year, you're likely to have next year, unless the schedule says otherwise, but there's no reduction of anything. So the only reduction in personnel that we're experiencing right now are the English, math, science curriculums, because that's when we had the greater capability to make a schedule that we could unify the content classes, not the electives. Again, the electives is a whole different story, that we can maximize the class. So none of the electives, none of the performing arts, the sports, nothing has been touched. The only thing that we're looking at is to maximize the classroom sizes at the core content courses.
I was more asking about at Quinn Middle School, like how you're adding all of these classes through Project Lead the Way. And I know you have the grant for that, and that's why they're being pushed.
Right.
But instead of teaching 5th graders about current issues and media, which they might not be able to understand, have you considered adding something that might be more suitable for a 5th grade level?
Well, but that's what the curriculum directors worked on, okay? Make sure that there was a diversified number of courses that were in the arts, because they already have the arts, they have music, they have chorus, they have band, they have drama, they have all those components already at the middle school. And then when we looked at what else is offered, we didn't have much, that we would be supporting more of the STEM piece. So we're trying to bring a balance right now. So like you said, if the student wants to see something different, it might be the likely that they want to see happening from, for throughout their high school. At least they have the exposure in middle school to say, gee, that's what I like to do, as opposed to, I only offer this and that's the only thing I know moving forward.
There are also going to be some more targeted art electives. I think they're just not on that sheet where you see art. I mean, we've talked about adding pottery, because we have a kiln there.
Right.
It's just that those aren't ironed out yet, so you're not getting the specific names of them, because with the quarterly classes, students can pick a more customized schedule. So those are still there.
So that's what I was going to ask about music and band more specifically, because I know when I was a student at Quinn that during Flex Block we went down for chorus and band. Are chorus and band becoming electives that you can choose to put in your the related arts in period 6 and 7?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to
so not every student, is prone to that, but those who have an interest will have that. Teachers are the same, everything's the same. Nothing has changed there.
That's
Okay?
Thank you.
Good evening. First, thanks the superintendent and the committee for hosting this evening, and I think you should get credit for that. I think one thing, an observation of the entire conversation, is that the numbers tonight are both defensible and assailable. And I'll come back to that in a moment, but that's the game, the ping pong that we've been playing. I'd like to turn to two different questions. First, around the design that's been presented for Quinn Middle School for next year. I'm wondering where students with special needs and EL needs, where will they get those services? Is in those RA blocks?
Yes. So those who have services, those are in those related art blocks is where they're also going to receive it, right? Even though the schedule looked like this sort of a uniform kind of a schedule, I mean, I can have my related arts first period in the morning and have my English class last thing in the afternoon, right? So everything is going to be, the schedule is not exactly so uniform as the one. This is just a mock of, when you get there.
When I look for that, I must say that the undecideds in the Quinn schedule at this point in the year is disappointing. To be going into May with so many questions still floating is disappointing. So if these students are receiving these services in the RA blocks, My fear is that we start to create over time a group of haves and have-nots, because their time stays the same. The teaching day stays the same. If these other choices are being offered, but you can't do that because your English language skills aren't strong enough. You need academic support. You need. I have seen this in systems that it starts to divide the student body. So that would be a concern that I have as you presented this.
Sure. May I respond to that?
Sure.
That's exactly what I'm trying to break up right now. Because right now, students who have a disability and are also an English learner have very little options other than phys ed and perhaps an art class. So we're trying to provide for those students greater option, right? So what we have is those services are related services that must be delivered no matter what, right? So it's not the child's fault. But what we need to do is ensure that that child has other options other than what's available to them today. So what I'm trying to do is actually get away from that model, diversify the offers so they can actually they can go to an exciting class that perhaps is an app creator as opposed to have 2 gym classes because that's all we can afford. So we have an issue right now with the schedule, and that's about that. So we're trying to move away from that. That's why we bring such a diversified selection of related arts to be able to move away from that model.
I'm hearing the diversity. I don't hear the time. The time is 7 periods in the day.
Right.
So if students are either taking one of these new offerings or they're taking their ELD course.
So the schedule is based on a 6-day rotation. So it could be that you have.
So is there a drop block in here?
What's that?
Is there a drop period in the 6th day?
Yeah. So you have a 6-day rotation. So you might have, for example, world language. You might have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Tuesday and Thursday you have something else. The following week you flip, right? So because of that continuity of services, we'll be able to provide the ESL classes, the special education pull-outs that they need, whatever is necessary, plus embed in those components these types of service. So when you think of a day that there's a 6th day associated with this, maybe 4 days is special education, right? Because that's typically what's in the IP, and 2 days are related arts. So they can actually take something else on a 6-day rotation. So
IEPs would be either amended or written to fit that schedule.
Right, exactly. So the schedule is going to be the deal breaker here in being able to provide all the services that we need to provide for students, but be able to free up time in a 6-day rotation to be actually be able to provide students with art exposure, phys ed, health, and every other option we have.
Mm-hmm. I have qualms about the taste of approach, and it can be debated back and forth. But depth versus breadth, I think, should be a consideration. Students' best case scenario in the schedule you just described will have these courses for between 39 and 41 times. Midterm grades, I noticed that you are projecting quarters. First mid-grade terms for 5th graders who've never been in middle school will go out after they've been with their teacher 19 times.
Depending on the rotation.
Their teachers will tell you that they'll know almost nothing about those kids to report at that point, and very little at the end of a quarter.
Well, but that's the consequence of having the teams, right? So because
that's the consequence of having quarters instead of trimesters.
Well, not necessarily, because the trimester will have to run on a 6-day rotation, right? So you no matter what.
The trimester has 60 days and it is 45.
Right, but then with a trimester you can offer only fewer things, and for those, like you explained, those who have special needs or have ESL classes have an even less opportunity to be exposed to something else because of the trimester rotation.
Okay. In my opinion, the number of things becomes less important.
Mm-hmm.
I see that argument. My other point is for the committee. If the committee, and when I use the term "the committee," you are the group of people who are the committee today. The committee is a political entity in Hudson, has been around forever. The committee has known that there's a structural deficit for at least 7 years. I'm positive of that fact. Has never had the political will to do anything about it. And tonight, Mr. Foy, you said, don't go to town meeting and mess up the budget being approved, which I understand the legalities of town meeting, but I think it's a very insincere statement to ask people not to speak against a budget they disagree with in a public democratic forum, number one. Then you followed up that by saying, and I hope that selectmen are listening. I had a school committee member in a public school committee meeting say exactly that 7 years ago, and that was all the committee did. The rollout of this change has been, in my opinion, a professional failure and a political failure as well. And I'm sad about that. I hope the committee will think about the political power that you do have to rally the troops. And it goes well beyond hoping the selectmen are listening. You actually get to talk to them. You actually get to organize people. You don't run the school system day to day. That's the piece that you need to give him. Because he is not the political voice of the Hudson Public Schools. He's the educational leader. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Julia Bethasamo and I'm currently a sophomore at Hudson High School. First, I just want to start out by saying thank you for holding this forum. Despite the high tensions and strong emotions, I think I speak for most everyone when I say that while we may not agree with some of the changes, we are grateful that they are at least being explained to us now. And I think, referencing back to the strong emotions, they really do come from the fact that a lot of us feel like we've been left in the dark. And not just the students, members of our community, teachers, all of us alike feel like, we have not been properly notified of these changes. And I believe, although some of my concerns have been addressed here tonight, I have a lot more concerns that, I don't believe I can address in this short time here. And I think, the overarching concern that could summarize all of them is the lack of communication. And then something that I just kind of want to leave the community with is that, we are the power in Hudson. The power doesn't really lie in the school committee or in the superintendent, it lies in us. So when re-elections come up or when there is a proper place to really assert your voice, I really want people to take advantage of that.
Hi, Dr. Rodriguez. Hi, everyone. You may know me because I'm Selena. I've been at the past 2 meetings, school committee meetings, speaking and raising my voice on how just this is affecting my life and everyone else and their children and their grandchildren, and everyone is affected by this negatively. And in my past 2 speeches to you, I've been very nice. I'll admit that, I've been very nice. But, as Mr. Daniel said, you guys, the committee, has the political power to make change. And they have to listen to us. Just going off of Julia's point, you can use your power to tell the committee. I don't have that voice because I'm not 18. But it's you guys, the community's voice, that you have to really listen to. And I'm just beyond baffled because not once did you come to the community before you put this budget up and asked our opinion. And going off, I forget who said it, but Sammy. It was Sam. And she said, why didn't you ask the kids? We're the ones who have to suffer the loss of the teachers. I personally know with my research and talking to teachers that next year's senior class, which is my class, there's been 86-ish kids who have signed up for dystopian literature in English. There's only 2 teachers that teach that class.
you can do the math. And also, well, I forget who said this, I'm so sorry. But AP classes, there's currently 2 AP teachers on the chopping block who also teach regular classes. Now we have to pay for for other teachers in that section of the common whatever, science. They're both science teachers. They're AP teachers. Now we have to, and there's an English one, just forgot. There's 3. There's 3 AP teachers who now have to go to classes to get that certification, teachers who have already been at the school have certification for that. Where's that money is being used for teachers? We could save money by keeping the teachers and who already have the certification to teach those classes. It really upsets me because all of this stuff wasn't looked at. Also, again, I feel like I brought this up in either the first or the second meeting. I talked to many teachers who are close to retirement, and the committee had stated that they've been doing this nicely, giving people who are close to retirement. Why weren't buyouts suggested first to go slowly into this transition? Because I know there's many teachers in the high school that would have taken the buyouts. Thank you.
Student at Hudson High, and I've had 2 students graduate from Hudson High. I've been listening for like 3 hours now, and I'm still confused as to, first it was the reduction because of the lower enrollment, and now it's about budget. So I don't know if it's about lower enrollment or really about budget, or is it both? Because it's been said it's about lower enrollment, but it's not really. It's really about budget. So let's be honest about what it really is.
Hi, my name is Maya and I'm a freshman at Hudson High. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, so sorry if this is a little choppy. But you've talked a lot and I wasn't here for the whole meeting, so sorry if some of my points that you've already addressed. But I grew up in a Catholic school and my Catholic school closed and I went to Hudson Public Schools for most of elementary school and the middle school in 5th grade. And after 5th grade, I switched over to AMSA for the rest of middle school. So I thought I would just give my input because I heard about AMSA and ASABIT being talked a lot about students coming and leaving. And one of the main reasons I went to AMSA you did address, and I do agree, at Quinn in 5th grade, I came home with all A+ on my report card without really trying. And I understand your point about challenges, and I completely agree with that. But at AMSA, I want to address the class sizes one more time. Just because at AMSA, yes, I was being challenged, but the class sizes were enormous, and I wasn't getting the help that I'm getting here now at Hudson High. And I don't feel like I'm getting less challenged here than I was there. The reason that I did come back for high school was because of the reasons that you're taking away from us. And I completely agree this is very hard for you and like the whole school committee. But the reasons I'm here now are the reasons that you're taking away. Some of my teachers that are getting cut are some of the best teachers I've had. And the class sizes are the way they should be in my opinion. At my old school, AMSA, the class sizes were big, like I previously said. And yes, I was getting challenged, but I don't think I was getting the help that I needed, and I wasn't succeeding as much as I think I could have been now that I am here with smaller class sizes, especially in English and history. AMSA is the Advanced Math and Science Academy, so obviously it focuses more on those classes. But even here, my teachers, I didn't have the type of teachers here that I had at AMSA, and the teachers that I am here for today and why I'm staying at Hudson High are the teachers that you were taking away. So I just wanted to kind of lay my point out there and just say that this is why I'm here, this is why I'm back in Hudson schools, are all the reasons that you're taking away from us.
Hi, I'm Veronica, I'm a freshman, and I'm really concerned about the related arts courses at Quinn. I appreciate how there's the engineering and all of the project lead way stuff for each of the grades, but I feel that that's being looked at more and it's being pushed more than other classes like the writing and the ELA related things, because really the people that are going to the ASABIT and AMSA, they are the ones that are focusing on the engineering and those sorts of things, while the people that are staying here more are usually focusing on ELA, and that's what they like more, and also the community, and I feel that this is breaking apart that.
So I actually started this off. I'm Mikey. I'm a freshman. I shouldn't have to say that though, because I'm here to speak and shouldn't be judged on what I am. But I wrote you a 2.5 page. I printed it out just for my finals, but I typed you out a 2.5 page essay voicing my concerns, referencing teachers like Mr. McCardle, Mr. Hoyt, Ms. Hoffman. I'd known those three, had taught me at that time, so I had referenced those. And you send me I'd say a paragraph is that's an understatement. So you send me like a little tiny thing that's basically said, that's unfortunate. And I feel like that could have come from a robot. I mean, we have new technology that could have sent me that response and more. So I feel like then I wrote you a back response that basically voiced more concerns based on your little response that you'd written to me, and that didn't get a response. So that's why I'm here today, to try and voice my concerns to you, because clearly emails don't work. So if we are looking at this year, you said that you're adding in, for 5th grade, so there's 10, I believe, related arts classes that they're taking. How many of those are getting added? Because I know that we had 2 arts classes that we could take. We had drama classes, stuff like that. And if I did that, if you were keeping those classes as well as adding mathematics, that means that 5th graders will be required to take those mathematics and science courses, which basically means that we're forcing kids to that might not actually enjoy that. They might be struggling. And the Quinn Middle School is basically, the structure of that is to take kids what they learned in elementary school and then take that and prepare it for high school. So what they're doing is they're building more knowledge and more experience towards that. So if you were just adding in more mathematics and science courses, the kids who are already struggling are going to have bigger class sizes that they have to deal with when they're trying to get that one-on-one help that they need to be able to develop those skills to succeed in high school, as well as add more classes they most likely will not succeed in because there are more students that have to take those classes as well. It doesn't even out because kids have to take those classes. The same number of kids in that grade that are going to have to take English have to take those other classes that you're adding in. And I feel like that's just another class that if they don't succeed in, you're talking about being a great school and we're trying to move towards that. But if we're building bigger class sizes, that reflects in our MCAS scores, our regular scores. Kids are just going to fail the science and mathematics courses that you're adding in. I feel like that's just going to look bad on our school. It's not really going to do good for Hudson High and other schools like Quinn Middle School, Farley Elementary. If you're adding more into Quinn, people that go from Farley might not want to do that. They might not want to put their kids through that same struggle that they're going to have to deal with. They could go to AMSA at the high school, not have to deal with all this after going through that, because even though the high schools, right now it's a great place, I don't know how that's going to affect it once we take away those teachers' jobs. But after going through the new format of Quinn Middle School, I stayed here because I knew that this was a great program. But after that, I probably wouldn't have, because I would have gone to the AMSA alternative. But I did stay because I knew that it was a good program. I liked the teachers. I knew who they were, that they were going to care for us. They were going to give one-on-one. And I thought that AMSA was more so just like kids that are pumping out mathematicians, scientists. I didn't want that. I wanted experience. I wanted to grow relationships between students and teachers. So I feel like that if you were to address more so and less like numbers, because I get black and white numbers. If you're to say you fixed the budget problem and you want to move on eventually, you can put that on a piece of paper under your name, but you can't really put our voices and our concerns and these people here today who have shrunken numbers, but still there were a lot more of them and they were voicing their concerns earlier. You can't really put that on a resume, and I feel like that would be really important to have. So if you were to listen to us now, we could kind of go through that process to have not only the parents, students that have to go through this, but as well as the students. As many students have said, if you'd ask their opinions, they are the ones that have to take these courses. I feel like if you'd ask them, probably could have helped you make a better decision. And I'm going to leave on one final note. I believe that the job of the committee, correct me if I'm wrong, is to represent the people of Hudson to make the best decision. Is that correct to say? So how is it that I'm hearing multiple times throughout this meeting that from these people as well as other people in the crowd, let's agree to disagree, because these people are meant to represent us, take our ideas and move with them and make something that we can actually be proud of. So if we're agreeing to disagree with the people who we have put forth to make decisions for us and help us through, they're not doing their jobs. They're failing miserably, because if we have to disagree with the people who we have sent to voice our concerns to you, to the selectmen, to to the upper Congress even, if you want to bring all these concerns up there, but we're disagreeing, I feel like that's not really justice to the people. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nicole Gennaro, and I am a junior at Hudson High School. And I'm extremely concerned about the teacher layoffs at not only Hudson High School, but at Quinn Middle School as well. Since my younger brother attends Quinn Middle School currently, I'm specifically skeptical that the decision to lay off teachers will result in my brother not receiving the utmost education that all students deserve. Specifically, as a result of the teacher layoffs, class sizes will obviously increase, especially in the perspectives of the students. Unfortunately, an increase in class sizes will in many ways negatively affect not only the student learning environment, but also the availability for one-on-one help and guidance with teachers. As a result of a decrease in availability for one-on-one time, how can students truly receive the best opportunities in order to improve and succeed? As a student who has grown up in the Hudson School District my entire life, I've had the great fortune to have some extraordinary teachers who have been extremely influential in my life. In fact, most recently at Hudson High School, one particular teacher that is being let go has not only inspired me to challenge myself academically and provided me with powerful guidance related to my college life aspirations, but has also brought an extremely intelligent perspective and approach to learning. He is engaging, inspiring, and without him, as well as many other teachers, I would not be the diligent, motivated, and conscientious student that I am today. I propose that you please seek an intelligent, gradual reduction over 3 to 5 years. This will not only solve the crisis, but it will also still keep the Hudson School District intact and competitive. I must not express my extreme disappointment enough that such a caring and motivating teacher will no longer be able to educate and inspire students at Hudson High School. I was especially looking forward to this teacher's guidance in my upcoming final year at Hudson High School. This is a significant loss to all students and parents of students at Hudson High School. In consideration of many other teachers who have done the same as this particular teacher, I would like to acknowledge the fact that they deserve their jobs too. Mr. McCardle, along with many other teachers who are being laid off, are worthy of this investment, and so are we, the students. In conclusion, I, along with many of my peers and parents and people in general, ask that you reconsider terminating the positions at Hudson High School and Quinn Middle School and consider restoring those crucial positions. Thank you.
Hello again. So I still feel like our questions are still not being answered. So Dr. Rodriguez, it's 10 p.m. Well, my last question is anything we say going to possibly change your mind about teachers' termination? After all, we are here past our bedtimes to fight for this, right? So all I want is a yes or no answer, please.
The budget has been set.
Yes, no answer, please.
No, the position
Okay.
is not going to be restored.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Hunter O'Connor. I'm a student at Hudson High School, and last time I was at a meeting, I talked about how teachers are the biggest part for us students during school because of how much they help us. Many of these teachers being cut are some of the best teachers I've ever had, and without them, I might not have been applying myself as much as I am now to show them that their time, effort, and care they put into teaching me doesn't go to waste. A lot of these teachers show that they really care for their students and really want them to succeed. Even teachers I've had back in the middle school, I still share a strong bond with, and they help me with a lot of problems I have today. The upcoming Hudson students deserve to get these amazing new teachers that keep Hudson schools interesting and makes these current students want to go to school and learn from these teachers. So I'm wondering, there's really nothing you can do to prevent or just alter this decision of yours into the students' favor, because it's clear that we want our teachers and it affects us more than it affects you guys.
The budget has been set, meaning that we have allocated the resources. If we reinstate teachers, the budget has to revert its course. Then all the people are going to be laid off. So I go back to the student enrollment. I understand the emotion of it. I met one of your teachers and we talked about it, okay? And he's a fantastic person. He came and talked to me and we had a great conversation. But it's nothing that I can do about it because, again, his status in the Hudson Public Schools. There are some teachers that even if we do gradually reduction, we're still going to be the first ones to go. Because again, the contract that we have with the union dictates how we orchestrate who goes first. So there's nothing that I'm doing that I say unilaterally, I want that person to go, I want this teacher to go. When there's reduction, is about certification, is about who came last and who doesn't have a tenure, meaning that it doesn't have professional status. Those are the things that dictate. So that's why we work with the union. There's no, like I said before, there's nothing pleasant or easy about it, but there are guidelines in how we have to reduce personnel. Whether it's 1 at a time or 15 at a time, it doesn't matter. The process is the same. So you're bound to have a teacher that you like go, because if that person was the last comer and the certification got to go, there's no way I can save a person. You know what I'm saying? It's just that's the unfortunate part, and I understand that, and I relate to that. I had great teachers too when I was growing up, and I know the bond that we make, right? The things that I understand that. But if there is a cut, small or large, somebody has to go. And it typically are the people who came last, because that's how the contract dictates how we reduce personnel.
Thank you.
Good evening. I understand the reason for the cuts. There's only so many funds that are available. We need to make sure that we can allocate them appropriately. My question is involving the student enrollment. If it's possible to go back to the student enrollment slide, it's about a dozen slides back from where you are currently. What we're seeing in this, especially if you're looking from fiscal year 2012 forward, is a significant increase in the number of students that are leaving from 8th to 9th grade. Starting in 2012, there's approximately a net loss of 5 students to 22, 21, 23, 25, 32, 55, and now projected 57. The number that are leaving in the middle school range is far lower than this. Can you tell me why it seems that the staff cuts in middle school are disproportionate to the number of students that are being lost in middle school ages?
Because the difference between scheduling in the middle school and the high school is different, right? At the middle school, it's about a cluster of students together. So it's a team. A team cannot function without the math, the English, the science, the social studies being together. And those 4 teachers equates to a number of students, right? So at the high school, it's about courses, number of sections of English, math, science, social studies, AP, every course. How many students enroll in those classes, therefore you put those numbers together and equates how many sections you need, therefore how many teachers you have. So the high school is different because, again, it's about that process. The middle school is either a team or no team. There's no cutting one teacher. You can't have a team without an English teacher. You can't have a team without social studies teacher, because if you do that, then the other social studies teachers or English that remains who have a much larger class because of reduction in personnel. Is if we value teams in the format at the middle school, having teams and each team having an identity per se, that's the formula that we have to use. So it's about a whole team or no team.
Okay.
As opposed to be individualized, for individualized, by section or by class at the high school.
The last comment I'd like to make is directed towards the students that are still here. I know it's late and I appreciate that you are still here. I understand that you're not 18 and you don't have the ability to vote to affect change in what you want to see happen with the Hudson Public School systems. But I can speak as a parent, as someone who has left the Hudson Public School systems, and she left because of a culture issue. So one thing that you can do while you can't vote is that you can affect change in the culture of your school, because based on these climbing numbers of 8th graders choosing not to remain in Hudson High School, going into 9th grade, culture is a big impact on that. My daughter couldn't wait to get out of Hudson High and has not looked back since. And I know there are other students. It's not indicative of all students, but there is a culture issue that needs to be addressed, and the best way to address it, because the administration hasn't done it, is to affect change amongst yourselves. Be kind to everybody, encourage a diverse culture where everybody is respected.
Hi, I'm Trevor Sawyer, and I'm here to give a statement by a very close friend of mine who couldn't make it tonight. and I have some questions of my own. I understand your perspectives may not be so easily swayed by the voices heard here tonight, but I do hope that our points might resonate with you. Hudson is a community, and a close one at that. I've lived here my entire life and have made some truly incredible friendships that will last a lifetime through the schools, and I've had the privilege of attending. I have 3 siblings, an older sister who graduated Hudson last year, a younger sister in 6th grade at Quinn, and a younger brother in 4th grade at Forest Avenue. I'm not the most eloquent speaker you will ever meet, but I'm here to show my support for my classmates, my friends, and my family. My concerns lie with the staff cuts that were announced just a few weeks ago. Enrollment decreases and million-dollar deficits are not merely light inconveniences, and I know that it has not been treated nor acted upon as such. It is, however, ultimately disappointing to know that the decision to lay off staff members of both Quinn Middle School and Hudson High School has been reached without sitting down and having an honest discussion with the community. I understand that some things, while unfortunate, are necessary, but I wish that there had been more of an open level of communication. Ask the students, ask the parents, ask the teachers who love what they do, the teachers who have small classes and big classes alike, the teachers who are proud to be strong influencers in the Hudson community. It seemed as though there was little to no advance notice prior to the announcement. Enrollment has been decreasing over the last 12 years, and yet it was only very recently that the general public was notified that it was going to prove to be an issue. I believe that hosting more of these public forums will be extremely beneficial in closing the gap between residents of Hudson and local government. Oftentimes, the only thing standing in the way of a person is the lack of information being provided to them. I was uneasy about making a statement tonight, afraid I didn't have the full picture, but then I realized that that is true. I don't have the full picture. I realized that emailing and researching online can only give me so much, and I hope that the changes brought about tonight will help resolve the problem for the future. Sitting down as a town and listening to each other's ideas and concerns will only make us stronger. Whether or not my words today will bring about changes beyond my control, but I do hope that the community's presence in this auditorium tonight will linger with
49,000 in red. That's what we have to reduce the budget from now to June 30th. But along the way, since July 1st of last year, we already reduced that by $2 million. And $2 million that, again, we could have spent elsewhere, but we had to reduce because otherwise we won't be able to balance the budget.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay, I have 2 points here. My first point is a lot of people have been talking in favor of Mr. McCardle today, but I actually want to bring up another teacher who is getting laid off, Mr. Mark Kranz. He is a math teacher here. He was my honor statistics teacher last year, and also he is my ultimate Frisbee coach. And I just I know it sounds stupid, but it's great. It's a great sport. But I wanted to make this personal. Like, these aren't just teachers anymore. They're our coaches. They're on the field with us. Next year, I'm not going to be here. I'm a senior. But we don't know what the future of our Hudson High Ultimate program is going to be, because the only other person that we know that plays Ultimate is Mr. McCardle, and he's getting laid off also. So that's a problem. So we're going to have to look for, well, not me, but the team is going to have to look for a new coach. And so it's more than just teachers you're getting to, it's coaches. They're doing more than just teaching. But my other point is that I'm 18 years old, and I will be at that town meeting on Monday with a bunch of other 18-year-olds ready to vote on whatever need comes up. I just wanted to put that out there, that I am in the Advanced Placement Government and Politics class, and I have that class tomorrow, and I'm going to be bringing this meeting up, and I hope that I'm not only going to get all the 18-year-olds in that class, but I'm going to work with the other kids in my grade and make sure that they are able to come also to this meeting. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Marshall, and I'm a freshman at Hudson High School. And I know that the issue of class sizes has been brought up multiple times during this meeting. And I'm not trying to be rude, but quite frankly, I'm very dissatisfied with the answers that have been given to us. So my little sister is at the middle school. She's going into 6th grade next year, and she is one of the kids who needs special help in certain core classes that she has. And I'm very concerned about the class sizes being too large for her teachers to focus on her needs and how she is as a learner.
So, in addition to, and I know we don't have to get into details about the needs of your sister, right? But there will be 2 additional teachers at the middle school next year to support students who needs, more than what the core content teachers can provide. So in addition to other services, if your sister is entitled to those or not, regardless of who that person is, there will be 2 other teachers to help students with math and reading.
I do understand that, but I do still think that her teacher, like her English teacher, I want her English teacher to know her as a learner. Even if she has those 2 other teachers to help her, don't you think it's important that her teacher knows what she needs, how she is as a learner, how to help her if she needs it?
Yes, and I believe the teachers will rise to the occasion. I don't think the teachers will say, gee, all of a sudden my class are too big, I'm not going to attend to the needs of my students. Teachers are very caring and very professional at the middle school. So I believe that they will rise to the occasion.
I do agree with that, and I agree, but don't you think that it's kind of a big adjustment for a teacher to go from an average of like 80 students per team to 107 students per team? Don't you think those extra 20 students are going to make a difference in how they handle the class, how they learn about each student as individuals?
I think it will be an adjustment, right? Because that, will be something different next year, right? But I do think that the teachers, they know how to form relationships with students. They know how to group students accordingly in the classroom. And whether you have 17 kids or 20 kids, I think the teachers can rise to the occasion. I am not concerned about teachers' quality or ability to perform their jobs, even though they have a greater number of students throughout the day.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Molly McCarley. I'm one of the teachers at the high school who isn't being laid off and is probably just as caring as the rest of the people that are. It is very unfortunate that we are losing teachers, but I think that it's unavoidable. I'm really glad there's student voice here tonight, but you guys are repeatedly asking the same questions over and over again, and Dr. Rodriguez cannot tell you to sit down. So I'm going to ask you to sit down unless you have something new to say. If you have something new to say, that's fabulous. Please do not repeatedly ask if teachers can be rehired. The budget is set. Do not tell us how much you care about the arts over STEM, because they're taking that into consideration. So if as a student voice you have something new to say, please say it, but otherwise please sit down, or we're going to be here till 11 o'clock and we can't tell you to go home. Okay? So I'm going to act like a teacher and I'm going to ask you, please say something new, but if you don't have anything new to say, please sit down.
I'm going to kindly say that our voices weren't heard at the beginning of all this, so it's about time that we're able to say what we want to say.
I understand that. You have a right to hear your voice, to say what you need to say, and for us to hear your voices.
If this has been handled properly in the first place, and we were not all kept in the dark, the deep dark about this before it happened, you wouldn't be here at 20 minutes past 9.
I don't agree that we were all kept in the dark.
You don't want to let that go home.
Pardon me, we're going to get back to anyone who has something else to say.
Hello, so my name is Ollie. I'm a sophomore here at Hudson High, and you very briefly mentioned how you were going to support and address students with the behavioral health needs, and for me that's I'm thinking about anxiety and feelings in the classroom, and so how with the possibility of an increase in class sizes, and how will you address students who feel anxious in settings like that, and how just in general how do you plan on addressing these student behavioral needs when it seems there's not, from this presentation, it seems there's not really a major focus on that?
It is a focus, but there's so much we can stretch the budget to, right? I go back to, we have greater needs, and the greater needs only come with more resources. More resources translate into money. So we need to find solutions within the budget to be able to support the needs. The social, emotional, and the anxiety that you talked about, those are real, right? The teachers, it was the number one, kind of discussions I had with teachers when I arrived here. how these things have been escalated. But it's not a Hudson problem. This problem is everywhere. It's societal. It's personal. There's a lot going on, you know. And for anyone to deal with those emotions and be able to come to school prepared to learn and do their work and the stress of that is very taxing. And we need to create more capabilities. But there's so much we can go. I'm addressing right now through the budget some of the major issues we have at the elementary level, because that's the place where we have less, you know, intervention for students who are dysregulated. So we're addressing that right now. There's the budget, talks about, you know, some behaviorists for the elementary level. We're trying to get more support for teachers to be able to handle, to a certain extent, some behaviors in the classroom, and if not, then what other support systems there are. That's a deficit. That's a huge problem. And problem not only about, you know, how do we deal with that, but also, are we equipped to deal with it? You know, how ready are we? Because we can't ask the teachers to do everything, right? They still have to do the teaching and learning in the classroom, and not every child is ready to come in and sit down and perform, right? So that is something that is in the forefront of our conversation, and how to deal with that. Today I had a conversation with teachers about middle school. Well, that's one of the things that we talked about, is exactly that. How are we gonna, you know, continue to deal with that? And we need more resources over time. And that's one of the priority areas. And when we devise, I'm gonna show, you know, the school committee the district improvement plan that we're planning for the next 3 years. That's the top, one of the number one of our strategic objectives is to take care of the whole child. Meaning that how are we gonna take care of the entire needs that you have, not just give you the math and science and, you know, what you need, but also how to take care of an individual so you can be safe, you can be in a good space where you can handle stress, you can handle all the other things that life throws at you, but we need to have more resources for that. And that's the forefront of our priority.
I just seem like I'm a little worried about that, because like the budget is already like so tight and there's so many other things that we have to focus on. So like I feel like there's no room to like help students that struggle with these problems. So
that's one of the main reasons we need to reduce the budget gap. Because unless we reduce that gap, every year we have to reduce the budget by $2.5 million. Money that could be used to supply all the, you know, services or the more personnel, psychologists, clinicians, people who can help teachers, not only help students individually, but also empower teachers to maneuver better a classroom where you have students who are not so, you know, stable, they need more assistance. So it's not just about the student, it's about all teaching staff to be able to help them out.
A lot of what we are supplying right now is very, very grant dependent, which is another reason we have to make room in the budget for it, because if those grants die up,
yeah.
Those are not programs we want to lose.
Hi. First, I would like to say thank you for everyone for staying here and listening to us, because I know that it can be a struggle sometimes, and I'll try to take the least amount of time possible. I just wanted to address one simple question / concern that I have. I noticed that a few minutes ago, a student asked if anything was going to be changed by us students and community members voicing our opinions. And you mentioned that no teacher positions will be restored. And with all due respect, what is the point in so many community members coming together, sharing our opinions and sharing our time, if there is no possibility we can alter the changes that have been and are being executed? I understand that it could be, that the opinions that we're sharing today could be used to create plans for the future, but we're addressing the issues now and we're trying to make a change today, not years from now. Thank you.
So let me just elaborate, Adele, a little bit. So your peer who just said something about, how can we address the other things? Unless we move forward, there's nothing we can do about it, right? So we need to move forward. Move forward means addressing the needs of the district, meaning the needs of the students, the needs of the teachers. Because without the teachers, we don't have students and vice versa, right? So the only way we can do that, if it's one, we manage the budget, because that deficit's real and is impeding us from growing. And at the same time, without looking at the budget to see how we are economizing and making sure that some parameters are in place, actually can find money in the budget that can actually supply some services and supports for the ones that we're just concerned about, right? So that's real too. I think the point is that you're voicing your opinion, and I'm hearing everybody, that's real too. But right now, there's no way of moving the budget backwards. The budget was already approved, in January, not because we're willing to do it, fiscally and soundly, we cannot reverse the process, because if we do that, then we're gonna decompensate and take things away that are already existing right now, or even for next year, go backwards. So we're gonna be in a worse spot that we are right now if we actually take such an action. And it's, again, I think the advocacy, be able to be here and talk about, I think that's important. But not every time we have a strong opinion can actually make changes, right? I think you know that, you're very smart. Well, I mentioned this to everybody the other day. I was talking about, I attended the March 14th, ceremony you guys did at the high school here. It was phenomenal. It was respectful, it was orderly, it was done in such a nice manner. And what I saw, it was that kind of capability of being almost an adult, even though, you're getting there, right? But that sort of, that empowerment of autonomy, and that's great. And there are several times when we need to advocate for the greater good. And certain things we can promote change, other things we can't. This is one of those parts that if we reverse the process right now, we're going to undo things that would be in the worst spot that we are in right now. And even for next year, we won't create the supports that we envision to support. That's the hard part. And it's not about being ignored. It's about the fact that I'm listening, and we're understanding what the issues are. We're hearing your voice, but this particular piece is a budget issue, and the numbers don't lie. And unfortunately, there's a reduction in personnel. And with that comes removing teachers that you cherish and the teachers you admire and you really like. And there's, again, if there was a different way of doing this, we would do that. But contractually, there's a very specific way on how we reduce personnel. And again, it's unfortunate that some teachers are being affected more than others. But again, there's nothing I can do different right now in reduction personnel that would alleviate some teachers not to be the ones being let go.
Hi everyone, I'm Ben. Sorry to speak again, I know it's a long night. I just have a couple things. I didn't get to say it earlier, but I want to thank you as a committee and as a superintendent for holding this forum for us, because there are a lot of unanswered questions that got answers today. And yes, there are still some that don't have answers, but I want to thank you for that. And then I have to stick up for my fellow peers here, because we are the United States of America as a democracy. We have the First Amendment right, whether we're 6 months old or 110 years old. It is our duty as citizens, and it is our right to get up here and ask a question as many times as we want so we can understand it. We're all different learners. Some answer may have something that someone understands, another answer brings in another aspect of that. Please don't tell us to sit down because we're using our First Amendment right. Thank you.
Thank you for the students that stayed, and someone asked what the purpose of tonight was if we couldn't bring back the teachers, and I think it was informational, letting you know where we came from, letting you know how decisions are made, and I love that you're all up there asking questions. I love what you did for the Parkland students. I love to see that environment, and I think everyone on school committee does. And I'm glad you're all motivated now. Stay motivated throughout the year and throughout the years, and anytime something comes up, please feel like you could email us or schedule time and ask us questions. And also, Ben is your student rep. Ben could ask us questions. And also, don't be disappointed in us if we can't answer you, because a lot of times we will redirect you back to a building administrator or someone that knows the exact information you're seeking. But if it's a school committee issue, please come to us. And hey, we're working on policy now. Read through your policy books and get back to us if there's things you think need to be changed. But there's things we can't change, and we can't change the teacher's contract, and we right now can't change our budget. But we do want to hear your voices, and you are being heard, and I think that's what you want to hear, is that you are being heard.
I'll go last.
No, I wasn't really. I was just. The only thing I would add on top of that, yes, please reach out to us. And please understand that we are also, as members of the school committee, most of us are parents. We are volunteers to be on the school committee. we have the same concerns that you do. We have the same goal that you do. We want to make the Hudson schools the best they can be. And we have to make, when we have faced hard decisions, it's not easy, and we understand that, and we appreciate hearing from all of you about this. But we do think that the choices we've made are the best way forward for our schools. We do believe that. And I hope that, some of the data that we've provided tonight will help you see that too.
Thank you all who stayed to the end. Thank you all who spoke. There were a few things we heard tonight from you that I don't entirely agree with, in that we did not create this budget in the dark. Could we have done a better job marketing and sharing more information with you? Yes, in hindsight, we could have. There are constraints with HR, and there are constraints within our open meeting law of different things that we could discuss and talk about. Going forward, please approach us, please email, please reach out. These were not easy decisions to come by. I echo what Glenn said. We are parents. This affects our family, our children as well. I echo what Liz said. It is so refreshing and energizing to see young people involved. And I'm sorry if it is the Parkland effect that such a horrible thing had to happen, that it is inspiring others to do. I'm sorry if you're feeling frustrated that you can't affect change here, but there are other places that we need you to use your voice and help improve our society. And what we do here in the committee is our tack to try to help improve society. I don't know if Mr. Daniels is still here. One of the things he said resonated with me. There has been an issue with our budget for a while. I'm sure Mr. Lucy would jump in and second that. I got on the committee 4 years ago. I had to learn a fair amount about how everything worked in budgets. I was not an administrator. I did not come in with that piece of my hat on. I had to learn. And over time, we realized that we did need to make changes. And through a new superintendent, we were able to start to make those changes. Are they the most perfect changes we can do? Probably not, but it is a way that we can start to move forward. And that's all we want to do, is make Hudson schools better and move forward. So I'd just like to thank you all for coming tonight. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Just thank you, for all of you who came and spoke. And again, there's no easy answers. The road in front of us, I encourage you to read my financial plan when it comes out. It's going to be a difficult situation. We're going to have to make difficult decisions to get our budget to be where we actually can say we are sound enough that we can start growing from here. But in the meantime, we have to retool our money, the money they already have, and find alternatives to that money to support our students, because the struggles that we have, the challenges that we have are real, because again, we don't have all the services to support all our students, not just academically, but also socially, emotionally, and in other areas as well. So again, it's a difficult road. There's nothing pleasant about it. There's nothing easy about it, but it's something that we have to move forward, because right now, next year, we will be in a better place than we are this year, but we're not going to be at all where we want to be. Not only about courses and offerings, but also the support systems that we have to be in place to support every child. Like their mother said, we make sure that the culture of the school supports everything. And the culture starts with our, adults in the building, and it's built down to you, and how we perceive ourselves as a body who takes care of one another. And that's a priority. And besides that, how do we then have resources to support all our efforts to make sure that no individual, no student is left behind or unattended, or something that we say we could have done something different had we had different resources. We have, I think somebody said, we are different learners. We are. Not everybody learns at the same rate, the same way, the same style. Teachers are very caring. Teachers are very, adaptive to that. But at the same time, they also need more support as well. And sometimes when we have these issues where we are struggling with supports, for students from teachers, that's the one way up and say the budget has to reflect our priorities. And if we believe that supporting everybody is our priority, we need to make sure that the budget reflects that. And again, it's not plentiful. We have a deficit. And we need to make sure that that deficit go away over time. Then we can start talking about how do we do something different? What can we do that is more appealing to Hudson? But before that, we have to make sure that we equalize the budget so we are at a situation where we're not going to have to cut budget each year to make ends meet. That's not a way of living. That's not a way what Hudson deserves. And that's the way we have to proceed moving forward. We need to find a solution to the problem. Thank you.
Thank you again. Stay home tonight.
Fred, can I just ask you one thing?